Good evening and welcome to Caffe Lena. Thanks for watching this live stream production from Saratoga Springs, New York. These live streams are made possible by the generous support of the Sarah B. Folk Charitable Fund and by our community of subscribers. Special thanks to our Virtuoso level subscribers and lifetime Caffe Lena members. By buying a ticket for this performance, you're supporting independent music and the mission of our historic nonprofit venue. Enjoy your front row seats for this show, live from Caffe Lena. I hope you're enjoying the show tonight. Here are a few of our upcoming concerts we think you might enjoy. Check out the full schedule in the upcoming live stream section of Caffe Lena TV and join us for more live music. Thanks for watching this live performance from Caffe Lena. You're supporting independent music and the mission of our historic nonprofit venue. You can find out more information about the legacy of Caffe Lena and our diverse programming at caffelena.org. These live streams are made possible by our community of subscribers. Special thanks to our Virtuoso level subscribers and lifetime Caffe Lena members. Please consider becoming a subscriber to Caffe Lena TV. You get unlimited access to over 200 live streamed shows per year, as well as on-demand viewing for 2 weeks after each live broadcast. There are discounted annual plans available, as well as monthly options, and you get to see exclusive shows available only to our subscribers. Join us in building a sustainable platform for independent music. Caffe Lena TV is also available to subscribers on iOS and Android mobile apps, as well as Roku Smart TV devices. Just search Caffe Lena TV in the store and log in using the same information you use on your browser. It's that easy. You can leave an additional donation to support the artists on stage tonight and our nonprofit venue by clicking the currency symbol below the chat and following the instructions. A box will pop up over the screen and the show will continue playing underneath. The Caffe Lena School of Music offers group music lessons in person and online. The Caffe Lena online store is open. Go to caffelena.org and click Shop to find all the current Caffe Lena merchandise, including shirts, hats, mugs, posters, and lots more. Come visit us on Phyla Street in Saratoga Springs, New York. There's always something going on every night of the week.
Good evening and welcome to Caffe Lena. I think even if we didn't do anything else, just all being in the room together like this is it's almost enough fun as is. So we have quite a show ahead of us, and I think that as we go through the evening, one of the things that we're going to understand better is why this place is today celebrating its 66th anniversary. And it's all of the people who have somehow left a part of themselves in this room and taken a part of the room with them out into the world. And so I just wanted to point out that this photo was taken 66 years ago today. That's opening night. That's Jackie Washington, and it was in this room, except that Jackie was standing over there. That's where the stage was at first. And everybody remembers what the room was like back then. So I wanted to actually start with Lena's words. I was kind of scratching my head trying to figure out how to introduce this evening. It felt like it required something special. And I looked up at my bulletin board and saw Lena's words where I had pinned them quite a while ago, and it was just perfect. It said, "We had a projected opening date of May 20th, and despite problems in completing the plumbing work, we opened on May 21st, 1960, with Jackie Washington. As far as folk music was concerned, I had had no exposure to it at all. My interests were mainly jazz and pop standards, and my husband's background was mostly in classical music. Most of our contacts were made from people in the Boston folk scene. It was, of course, the peak of the folk music revival. And in those first weeks, we presented many young artists: Tom Paley, Dave Van Ronk, Logan English, Dick Weissman, who were embarking on new careers in a brand new field of musical entertainment." So those are Lena's words. So the way this evening is going to work is that we're going to have a mix of people in person on this stage, and then also some people who were not able to be with us tonight for a variety of reasons have sent in videos that we'll be playing. And so we'll be going back and forth. Performers, which is a good chunk of you here tonight. I am going to announce who's going to be coming up next, and then I'm also going to tell the person who's on deck to get ready. So if you're able to make your way quickly to the stage, you're welcome to stay in the room. If you're kind of hemmed in and you want a little bit more time, you can go around into the back hall and come in through the stage door. But just be ready for a fairly quick turnover because we have a lot that we're going to do tonight. Before we get into the storytelling performances, Joe Bruschack has very kindly offered to open up the evening with a special prayer and blessing. Please welcome Joe Bruschack.
Kwai Nidoba. We come here to this place of music and story. We come here within this land of the gift of spring water, of health and healing. And it's important for us to remember our minds and our hearts are as one in the circle we shape tonight. And so I offer you this prayer as a song. Neme toko sena, spem ki kayan, sogmo ame guadets, aloisian, amanta pazi. Wawi toa, kedera labamua ugane. Nemi toko sena, nemi toko sena, nemi toko sena, spenki kayan. The words of the Lord's Prayer in the Abenaki language. May all that blessing be on you.
Please welcome to the stage Franklin Whitney and Sandy Silverheart. You are next.
Thank you. We're all here to talk about Caffe Lena, but I'm going to talk about myself too. Is this? Sorry. There, it's much better. I first came to the cafe in the mid-1970s, an embarrassingly social, awkward man in his 20s, feeling that I pretty much didn't fit in anywhere. But through pursuing reading interest and listening to what was then called progressive FM radio, most especially listening to the Mostly Folk show on WRPI, often hosted by the incredibly wonderful Jackie Alper. Jackie. I came to understand that there were places called coffee houses wherein I might find kindred spirits. So pushing anxiety and trepidation aside, I got myself here, got myself up the stairs, and was guided to a seat right about over there, near the windows. There's a painting in the alcove nearest the kitchen, dated 1974, and that painting, curiously to me, is pretty much exactly the viewpoint I had from the first time that I sat here. It's kind of a portal for me. That first time would have been my first time watching Lena walk to the stage, turn to the audience and say, "Good evening, welcome to Caffe Lena." Thankfully, Lena's greeting was something that I continued to witness many, 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 many times through her time here. Lena's welcoming spirit, the genuineness of the performers, the attentiveness of the audience, more and more I came to know I had found my people, I had found my kindred spirits. Following Lena's death in October of 1989, through the dedicated efforts of many, the cafe continued to operate. For sure, things were pretty shaky for quite some time. Lots of adjustments and readjustments, lots of stumbling and grumbling, just as one might suppose would happen when a matriarch such as Lena passes away. But through all that, no one gave up, and Lena's Cafe continued to survive. Around that same time, there was a bookstore in town called the Saratoga Book Company, owned and operated by Rusty Werner, a man of eclectic interests and nurturing nature. Rusty? Within that bookstore, fostering community and the sharing of creativity, Rusty started what evolved into the Writers' Circle. Around 1990-91, the bookstore closed, as bookstores sometimes do. Barbara Harris, who was then the manager of the cafe at the time, very kindly and very supportively mentioned to me that the cafe could serve as a new home for the Writers' Circle. Her offer was accepted, and though I did not plan to be, I ended up being the facilitator of the Writers' Circle. It felt right to be gathered here in the cafe, and we did so every Wednesday for quite a chunk of the early 1990s. I would like to offer a spoken word piece that came to me during that time. However, it does require a bit of context, actually quite a bit of context. Firstly, Lena had appeared in the 1987 movie Ironweed, starring Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep. Lena appeared briefly, listed in the credits as Slatternly Woman. In the movie, the ill and homeless character played by Meryl Streep, not feeling well enough to eat the toast that she had managed to acquire, offers it instead to the slatternly woman at the diner counter. Lena's character, on screen for about 15 to 16 seconds, responded appreciatively and gratefully accepted the offer. Content-wise, additionally, I will mention that one of the Writers' Circle participants that I would describe as a sensitive, feeling and seeing things that others perhaps do not feel and see, mentioned to me that she often saw the vision of a man in a top hat wandering about the cafe. And as one last piece of context reference, as many of you know, and as many photos will demonstrate, Lena very much enjoyed the company of a cat. The aforementioned spoken word piece opens with the description of Lena in the movie and moves on to Lena herself as one speculates about just who that slatternly woman might have once been. The piece ends with Lena again gratefully accepting the offer of the toast from a stranger. And although I would not have had this perspective at the time, this piece has come to me to view the last stanza in the ever more metaphorical manner, that a different stranger offering a different form of sustenance came along. Though Lena Spencer and Sarah Craig never met in life, I do believe that by some sort of magic, Sarah found her way here, and that over time, Sarah and Lena did become acquainted. And I do believe further that Lena's spirit is truly grateful for the sustenance that her cafe has thusly received. And now, my offering. The slatternly woman at the diner counter gratefully accepts a slice of toast from a stranger. Her gray hair is tangled, her old head is shaking, caught at an angle about 10 after 2. Who is she? Who was she? Somebody's lover, somebody's queen. Did she give shelter to those that wander? Did she give her heart to those that leave? And did she go dancing with a man in a top hat? Did someone call her from the top of the stairs? And when she's gone, who'll bake the cookies? When she's gone, will anyone care? When she's gone, who'll let the cat out? When she's gone, who will let the cat in? When she is gone, who will welcome the strangers? When she is gone, who will welcome old friends? The slatternly woman at the diner counter gratefully accepts a slice of toast from a stranger. And now there's one more thing that I absolutely have to do. A toast to Pasqualina Rosanargi, Lena Spencer, the woman without whom we would not be here, because here would not be here. The woman, when times were pretty good, she gave the traveling musicians, actors, and poets a place to stay and fed them with pans of lasagna. And when times were not so good, and she no longer had an apartment, she lived here in the cafe, sleeping in the green room, washing in the bathroom, and giving all she had to the cafe, truly giving all she had. To the woman who is rumored to have said, "When I die, the cafe will die. And if you let the cafe die, I'll kill you." Well, Lena, so far so good. Thank you, Lena. Thank you for your integrity and your persistence beyond all reason. Thank you, Lena. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.
It's going to be a hard act to follow. Okay, everybody. Thank you, Franklin. This is Sandy Silverheart. And after Sandy, we are going to see a series of 3 video stories: Garnet Rogers, Tom Paxton, and then Peter Davis. And after that, Gordon Boyd, get ready because you're next. Sandy, thank you. I'm going to bring this close to you.
Hi, I just want to say hi to everybody. And I'm sure many of you know me for all the years that I was involved in real estate here in Saratoga Springs. So I just want to share with you some very vivid memories that I have of Lena and Bill Spencer's introduction to Saratoga. It was in the fall of 19 oh God, I'm going blank. 19, 1959 in the fall. And at that time, I had 2 little boys. I had an infant and a 2-year-old toddler. And it was my treat on Friday afternoon to bring the boys to my mom's. And then I was able to go downtown and do all the things, meet a friend for lunch, tend to banking, hair day, dry cleaners, and whatnot. And then my dad would come home from work, and my husband would drive in from work, and then the family would all be together for dinner. And so at that time, my dad Saul Goldman, owned a commercial laundry here in Saratoga. And coin-operated laundries at that time were kind of a rage in this whole area, Saratoga, the whole Capital District, and now actually all around the country. And so he had thought about having a coin-operated laundry, but it was just a thought. Nothing had really materialized. But unfortunately, there was a contractor in Saratoga. His name was Leo Germanetti, and he was killed in a plane crash, single plane crash over Saratoga Lake. And he owned this building here at 43 Filer Street. And so my dad purchased the building from the estate of Leo Germanetti. And his idea was then to convert the space downstairs where Hattie is now into the coin-operated laundry. With Skidmore College so close in the neighborhood, he thought it would be it would be a good business venture. So this particular Friday afternoon, my dad came home from work a little early, and he said to me, I've had a phone call from a young couple from Boston, and they're interested in seeing the property that I just bought down on Filer Street. He said, I would like you to come down with me, to meet them. So I came down with my dad, and sure enough, we met Lena and Bill Spencer, who had been in Saratoga that day looking for properties. They had this dream to open this coffee shop. And somebody downtown suggested that they call my dad. They gave Lena and Bill my dad's name and phone number, and they said, I know this gentleman just bought this building, and maybe he has some space that you could use. So that was their beginning, and that was my first introduction to Lena and Bill Spencer. It's a very vivid memory I have. It's just wonderful. And so we came into the building, and this upstairs space was really awful. The gentleman, the contractor, used it as a woodworking shop. And so it was total disarray. But they looked around at the space, and they considered the location. And in a very short time, they decided that they would really like to rent this place, and they had this dream and they could vision that they could build a cafe here. And so my dad offered them 6 months free rent so they could come in and they could start the renovations that needed to be done. Coincidentally, we owned the building up on Filer Street, 3-family house, and at that particular time, there was 1 apartment vacant. And so we suggested that they come up and look at it, and they did. And when they realized that it would be fine, they would consider living there. We then offered them 6 months free rent on the apartment. So we felt that that was going to be a beginning for them. They didn't have to worry about paying rent, and they could put all their money and effort into building the cafe. So that's kind of the best part of my story. Absolutely. It's right here where we are, and I guess for all that, maybe we wouldn't be here today. So I wanted to share that memory. It just really goes back a really long time. And then I just wanted to share with you, too, that over the years, I was very fortunate, my husband and I, in getting to know Arlo Guthrie pretty well. And every time there was a concert anywhere in the area that we could get to, we'd be there. And Arlo was forever, talking about Lena and telling us how if it wasn't for Lena, so many of these young musicians would never have been able to make it because they had no money. And as the gentleman mentioned before, you were not supposed to be sleeping in this building. It was against code. But if you knew Lena always had some bedrolls tucked away. And so when these musicians came to this area, she always managed to give them a bedroll and she always managed to scrape up some food so they had food to eat and place to sleep. And it's just wonderful, you know, for the accolades and all the things that she did for all these young musicians to get them started. And then the later part of my story, and I think some of you may know this, but I feel very proud of the fact that when the family decided that it was time to sell the building, we felt very strongly that we wanted the building to belong to Caffe Lena Foundation. We never wanted to put it up for sales, although we had always had many calls, believe it or not, from people across the country who knew about Caffe Lena and knew about the coffee house and always wanted to know if there was a chance the building was for sale. We always said no, no, no. So we did, when we decided it was time, we did meet with the foundation board, and we told them we would give them a year, and we thought in that period of time it was really possible that they could raise the money to buy the building, because that was her dream, and of course that was their dream too. So fortunately, there was a young lady on the foundation board at the time who worked at Adirondack Trust Company. Some of you may know this, but some of you might not, so I just thought it'd be fun to share it. And she was instrumental, together with the bank, in finding this grant money so the foundation board could get this money and buy the building, and so it would be theirs forever and ever. So I'm excited to be here. I'm thrilled, and I'm glad to meet all of you. And I guess that's my story for now.
Thank you, Sandy Silverheart. Sally Harder, the young lady from the bank. Give a wave. I know you're here tonight. And also, just as Franklin said, like that, to Lois Hellman, who wrote a grant to the state that helped us close the gap and buy the building. And Sandy, I'd just like you to know that the mortgage as of last year is now fully paid off and the cafe is debt-free. Okay, so now for some video contributions. Reese told me to introduce them again. Garnet Rogers is going to start, and then we flow right into Tom Paxton, and then into Peter Davis. These videos, we kind of loaded them up so they're back to back. We didn't think like you'd probably want to clap after each one. So Reese is going to do his best to like hit the pause button at just the right time so you can applaud for Garnet and Tom. But if we miss it, we apologize. All right.
She had the strict rule. My brother Stan and I never got to play Lena's. She had the strict rule that you had to come in and audition. And Stan and I were stubborn enough and stupid enough that we just said, no, we're not going to audition for anybody. We are what we are. If you haven't heard of us, then to hell with you. So the trio never got to play Lena's, and I'm deeply regretful of that. I know Stan would have loved Lena as I did. And I don't know when it was, I don't know what year it was that I played Lena myself. It might have been 1985 or 86, and I was having a really bad time. I'd not only just lost my brother, I'd lost my meal ticket. I was a violin, flute player, a guitar player in a trio. And now I was supposed to be on stage making up songs and playing guitar. And that had never been in my dream. That had never been my dream. I had already achieved my dream, which was to be an alcoholic fiddler. And it was great, mostly. But Lena hired me, and as I say, I was just having such a rough time. I had no repertoire of my own. Beautiful friends were donating songs to me and sending me stuff, and I was learning how to talk a little bit on stage and put together some kind of a show. But my God, I was miserable, and I was steadily drinking myself to death, just out of pressure and despair. And I came here, and there's that famous picture of Lena talking to Bob Dylan and Susie Rotolo. Would have been probably over there at the table. And they were listening to her very intently. And she sat me down a couple of times, and she did what a lot of the old legends did to me, Odetta and Lou Taub Phillips, Tom Paxton. They just sat me down, and they basically told me, here's what's working, here's what you need to work on, and here's what you need to get rid of right damn now. And she was so extraordinarily supportive and loving, and one of the first things she did was she apologized to me. She took my hand, she said, Garnet, I'm sorry that Stan never played here. I was stupid to insist on you guys having an audition. And I really regret it now. And I said, it's okay, it's just fine, you know, this is your joint. And she was so gracious about it. And the thing, it happened in other places, but one of the things that had happened to me here that kept me going was watching Lena. She was losing her sight, and it was an open secret. She didn't talk about it that I ever heard of. No one talked about it. You know, it's just like, you know, Lena's going blind. We have to just help her the best we can. And so, you know, I've been dealing with eccentrics my whole life. But I don't know if I don't think it was vanity. She didn't want to be pitied maybe. But anyway, we'd be standing at the side of the room where the old kitchen was. And, you know, we had a bunch of people here, and she'd have a sheaf of papers that she could not read, but they were for show. And anyway, she said, okay, I'm going to go up and I'm going to read what's coming up later on this month. And I'd always make some excuse. Well, I'll come up with you because I have to tune my guitar. So, you know, she'd grab my arm and we'd thread our way through the tables. And the audience would always shift, and they'd, you know, help her as she went by, and I'd, you know, help her up on the stage. And she would read the upcoming events, and she had them memorized, obviously. And then she would do this lovely introduction. You know, Garnet Rogers is a wonderful folk singer, and he's a wonderful folk storyteller, and just, you know, it was always so graceful and kind and generous to me. And please welcome Garnet Rogers. And then she would just step off the stage. Like, it might as well have been Grand Canyon or the curb outside the club. It didn't matter. She would just launch herself off the stage. And everyone in the front row and all the way along where she'd come, you know, through a few minutes previous, they all would just grab her. They'd stand up and grab her and gently set her down on the floor. And everybody would just sort of touch her and clutch her hand as she went through, and she'd thread her way back. I mean, she knew her way through the room because it was her room, and this is where she lived. But I was watching it, and I realized this is my tribe, this is my community. And these are the kindest people I'll ever see. And I was seeing community and love, just selfless love in action every time I came here. And that's what kept me going. That's what saved me. And yes, I did quit drinking, and the world's a better place for it. But I remember those nights so vividly, and that's why I'm here tonight, and I will be grateful to the end of my days.
Hi, everybody. Tom Paxton here to talk to you about Caffe Lena and wonderful moments I've had there. One particular one I want to share with you tonight is about it was in the 80s sometime. I was singing a song I had written called Yuppies in the Sky, and it contained two lines that went in. All the men were wearing running shoes upon the ghostly deck, and each one had a cotton sweater wrapped around the neck. Well, sitting at a table right in front of me, facing me, was a young man. He must have been in his late 20s, early 30s, and he had a cotton sweater wrapped around his neck. And I saw, the second I finished that line, I saw him realize, oh my God, I'm wearing a cotton sweater. Everyone thinks I'm a yuppie. And we've all done things that we wished we hadn't done, and he did his that night. He tried surreptitiously, he started trying to slide the sweater off his shoulders, and it didn't work. I mean, it was so obvious. Everyone saw him do it, and the room started roaring with laughter, and I had to stop singing the song. I couldn't go on with it. It was a very funny and hugely embarrassing moment for him. I'm sure he's never forgotten, and he's probably never forgiven me for singing the song. But my God, it was funny. It was wonderful. I love the Lena, and I'm thankful for it.
Hello, hello, it's Peter Davis on my exercise bike. I'm having hip surgery 2 days before this event. That's why I'm not there. That's what happens in Geezerville. So let's see. I joined the board of Caffe Lena, maybe a year after Lena fell down the stairs. And shortly after that, we weren't happy with the person that was hired to be the director and the booking agent, and so we had to get rid of that person. And then Eva Nagel and I just noticed that light fixture is really interesting on the top of my head there, which is the best. That's kind of cool. We had the task of interviewing people to take this person's place. And so the first person that we interviewed was named Sarah Craig. And Sarah seemed like a really good candidate, and we hired her. And the part that most people don't know is that Sarah was the only candidate. And of course, she turned out to be the greatest person ever. Another little story I have is Lena hooked me up with John Phillips, who was living in Bolton Landing at the time. Myself and Tony Markellis. He wanted to have a little band that would play some shows around to debut some new songs. So we rehearsed and everything, and I was playing the saxophone and a banjo. And that was really an adventure, but it kind of spoke to Lena's expertise and knowing who was around and who could actually do it. We had some kind of crazy adventures with John and his daughter Mackenzie and a couple other people. Driving in a limousine across mountains in Norway. with chains on the tires and a huge suitcase full of drugs. I thought I'd really hit the big time. So anyway, here's a little song that I think Lena knew and would love. Sing along. Oh, we ain't got a barrel of money. Maybe we're ragged and funny, but we'll travel along, singing a song, side by side. We don't know what's coming tomorrow. We don't know what's coming tomorrow. Maybe it's trouble and sorrow, but we'll travel the road, sharing our load, side by side. Through all kinds of weather, what if the sky should fall? Just as long as we're together, it doesn't matter at all. Though the others have quarreled and parted, we'll be the same as we started, just traveling along, singing a song, side by side. Definitely kind of describes Lena's relationship with the cafe over the many years. And there was Granny swinging on the outhouse door without her nightie and me in my BVDs. Another thing we did when I was on the board, that was the time when we bought the building that enabled Lena's to become what it is now. But you know, you don't know what you got till it's gone, right? And I wish I had had more interactions over the years with that woman. Bye, everybody.
Yep, that was the guy who hired me. Gordon Boyd, please welcome him to the stage. After Gordon, we're going to have a video by Michael Cooney, and then Bob Warren. Get ready, because you'll be right after Michael.
Okay, good evening. Caffe Lena was the reason I moved to Saratoga Springs in 1971. I had visited the cafe as a high school and college student in the 60s, but in 71, Lena's was the social and cultural vortex in the swirl of which I met the love of my life, Sharon. She had found the cafe as a Skidmore freshman in 1962. Started waitressing here, played chess with Galway Canal, was mentored as a black and white photographer by Joe Alper. Meanwhile, while she pursued her studio art major, in the course of which she produced the portrait bust of Lena that sits at the back of this room. Lena used to walk up the street to the art studio and sit for the life classes and make a few bucks. Anyway, that's how Sharon and Lena bonded, and the bust was a plaster bust until the 50th anniversary, and then we took it down to Talik's Foundry in Peekskill and had it made into a bronze. I came here at the instigation of my Niskayuna neighbor, good friend and colleague at the Schenectady Gazette, Jack Hume, who will be speaking later this evening. He insisted I move here so that he would have a place to crash after late-night jamming sessions with the likes of ace fiddler Alan Stoll, singers Kurt Anderson and Andy Cohen. There were so many personalities whirling around in those days. Actor Spalding Gray and his then partner Elizabeth Lecomte, who led the Worcester Group avant-garde theater troupe for many years. Spalding was a leading man in Lena's theater productions on the other side of this wall. John Wynne Evans, I'm dropping all the names I can think of. Nephew of actress Dame Edith Evans, brought his special British flavor to a really great production of Camus' Caligula that I remember well. It was through that network, after seeing Alan perform in Schenectady, Alan Stoll, one night, and catching a ride up home with Ellen LeCompte, Liz's sister. Ellen owned the Montana bookstore around on Maple Avenue, that I met Sharon. 5 months later, on a Sunday, we decided to get married the following Friday, October the 8th. 5 days to plan and execute. I contacted a priest in Utica who made himself available for the occasion, and Lena very generously offered the cafe so we could hold a pre-wedding reception for our local friends the evening before. Thursday nights were open at the cafe because bookings then were almost always Friday through Sunday. So a bunch of my Gazette friends joined with our Saratoga friends to support what became our 52-year marriage. The next day, singer Bob White came with us to Utica and honored me as our best man. Another guest at the pre-reception was Clay Penny, who was dating Ellen LeCompte at the time. Clay later went on to win a Hollywood Oscar for special effects in the film Independence Day. That's after building out the health food store on Caroline Street, which I owned for a couple of years. Clay also then put a hot air balloon on the north campus of Skidmore that spring, and I took a ride in that. Among other artists drawn to the cafe and the social life were Loudon Wainwright III and Kate McGarrigle, future parents of Rufus Wainwright. Kate was briefly Sharon's roommate before Loudon arrived on the scene. Many of these young, aspiring, and creative artists were living at number 4 Franklin Square in a dormitory-style setting for $40 a month. Our own rent at the time was $80, heated, on the top floor of 19 Caroline Street, now the City Tavern. There was no shortage of affordable housing in those days. And hearing Sandy Silverheart's story brought me back to those memories. Ferone properties through here, I mean, all of the, thank God for Prohibition, because the money that was gained through the illegal trade went into real estate, as it always does. And then, Saratoga took a little turn down, so rents were affordable. On the stage, and sometimes in residence, Utah Bruce Phillips swept through, always in character, and eventually brought his friend Rosalie Sorrells here, along with their Western outlook. Bruce and everyone's friend and superfan, Al McKinney, established a booking cooperative called Wildflowers to try to increase the compensation of artists. Other people who came through were David Bromberg, John Harold, Michael Cooney, and David Amram performed regularly, as well as aspirants like Patty Nunn, George Gerdes, and Diana Markowitz. Lena was just full of generosity, as has been referred to earlier, and Sharon, by then my wife, was the director of the brand new daycare center, the first one in the county. And, she had the checkbook in her hip pocket and was, managing kids and a couple of staff people. They got behind with the IRS, and Lena held a fundraiser at Canfield Casino, got all the musicians out to play. We raised $500 to make good with the IRS, despite the musicians union showing up in the middle of it and trying to close it down. Another guest at our reception was the Venerable Dorothea Brownell, a native Saratogian, then in her 70s, a constant companion and Scrabble partner with Lena. They would have a game going in the back of the room on Lena's table most nights during the performances. And I remember one evening, during a particularly sentimental and quiet moment from the stage, Dorothea's voice rang out, "That's not a word!" Such interruptions also came from below, where Marvin Weiss's so-called newsstand downstairs regularly hosted high-stakes poker games that would produce loud disputes, providing local color to whatever music was underway at that moment. Gazette and local friends at our reception included Allison Slider, Max Valdez, Nan O'Reilly, John Gunther, Chester Welch, and Gazette writer Gail Schufelt. So amid the counterculture of the time, the cafe was a petri dish for artists, both established and aspiring. You see art here that you wouldn't see anywhere else, such as, I should point out, an evening of prison poetry presented by alumni of Mount McGregor Prison, where I was a volunteer for a number of years, just up the road in Wilton. I was delighted to help facilitate that evening several years ago with Sarah, and demonstrating once again that there are certain things that only Caffe Lena can do. Artists here meet their audiences in an intimate environment, which has been heroically sustained since Lena's time through the leadership of Sarah. Lena would be amazed, and that's all right too. Here's to 66 more glorious years.
I wish I had half the memory you people have. That's just amazing. Well done, Gordon. All right, so we're going to have a video from Michael Cooney checking in from Maine. He's no longer performing, hasn't for quite a few years now. Amazing to see Michael on video. And then, as I said, Bob Warren will be up next, and then Michael and Terosina after that.
One of my memories of the Caffe Lena, I learned a song called Lena is the Queen of Palestina, just because she plays the concertina. It was actually a fairly popular song in the 1920s or 30s or something. And other songwriters were doing similar stuff, writing songs like When Old Bill Bailey Plays the Ukulele Down in Honolulu Town, which I also learned, and a song I never ever heard, but the title stuck with me, of course. When Veronica Plays the Harmonica on the Pier down at Old Santa Monica. And I did see online one time on YouTube a video of a fellow who sang When Yuba Plays the Tuba down in Cuba. And he played it on the tuba also. A lot of fun. Anyway, I was playing when Lena is the Queen of Palestina, just because she plays the concertina, and there's a line in it, she was fat, but she got Lena pumping on the concertina. And one night I was singing that song, and lo and behold, Lena appears in the back with a concertina. And I'm not going to say she played it, but she pushed it in and out. A lot of fun. Lena was a lot of fun. I can't think of Caffe Lena without thinking of Al McKinney. He was a wonderful guy who did neat stuff in his life, but he hung out at Lena's a lot of the time when I was there. And I remember one story he told me great stories, but one story he said, these kids come up, and they say, man, this is a cool place. I could visit you sometime, fall by and hang out. And he had too many kids saying that to him, so he would say, well, I live off of Route 7 in Be-Built, New York. So come to Be-Built, New York and look me up. Well, that's because on the expressway near Troy, New York, for a long time, there was a sign that said, exit 7 to be built. If you play the Caffe Lena, you end up meeting students from Skidmore College. And I met quite a few over the years, and among them were students who came and acted in Lena's theater group. She had another part of the building next to the coffee house where she had a little theater group that did plays. And I remember Spalding Gray and Liz LeCompte and quite a few other people. There was a story, and I don't remember his name, but there was a weird guy who was part of that crowd, and somebody once said they saw him on a city bus in New York City wearing almost no clothes and carrying a big clear plastic bag full of meat. Weird world, folks. Well, that's all I can think of for right now. If I think of anything else, I'll probably do this again. But there was one thing that I remember from my time at the Caffe Lena, and that was one of the graffiti in the men's room. It said, "Michael Cooney is a one-man Pete Seeger." Gave me a good giggle.
Oh my goodness. Bob Warren, are you ready? All right, there he is, Bob Warren. You're welcome.
So I thought about this for a long time, and I might have made some notes and had any clue what I was going to say when I got up here. About 6 nights ago, I had a series of cohesive thoughts, and they really flowed nicely, and I thought, well, this will work. But it was late, and I didn't get up and write them down. So the reason I'm here, in part, is that my hearing is very bad, and I thought Sarah said that we were going to be videotaping this for prosperity. Anyway, I'm here. And I have a couple of things to tell you. One is a bit of a ghost story, and my son warned me not to tell it. And maybe I shouldn't, but I will. So I think most of you know the old cafe configuration. You would come up those stairs, and then there was tables along where they are now, but then there was a walkway between the tables on this side and the tables on that side. And in 2015, I was playing at a memorial concert here for Victoria Garvey. I had got done playing, and I was standing in the doorway that went into the theater that Michael Cooney just mentioned, and I was watching the people on stage. And as I watched, there was a cat, and it was weaving in and throughout the chair legs and the table legs and people's legs. And I knew the cat. The cat was Pasha. When I first met Lena, it was in 1969, and she lived over the Algonquin. And that's when I met Pasha. And we had grown up with dogs. I didn't know much about cats. So cats were a real mystery to me. I have to, I guess, tell you that I think that Pasha was very mysterious, in addition, being Siamese cat, very, very stately, moved in ways that I was not used to seeing. But here was Pasha walking in and throughout the chair legs. I knew that the cat was not there. It was like an energy force. And I only tell you this because about 45 minutes later, I had a heart attack. And I'm fine. But so it may have been like a medical related like stress thing, or perhaps, I don't know. My son told me not to tell you that one. But he gives me lots of advice, and I usually don't follow it. The second thing I want to say is in April or May of 1969, I was the lead in the junior class play that was at Greenwich Central School. And it was written by my English teacher, Tom Dolan, who lived here in Saratoga. And I wrote the songs for it. And Tom invited Lena to come, and Lena came and saw the show. And then a month later, I was here on stage doing my handful of songs. I wish I could remember who was playing. Obviously, it was not just myself. I had a guest set in the middle of everything. But it was the beginning of a great opportunity for me. Lena was very supportive. 1972 or 3 or 4, along around there, I was living in an apartment on Broadway here in Saratoga above the Conquistador health food store. And it had great big windows and it looked on Broadway, and I thought that was pretty cool. But that was the only cool thing about it. I didn't have any furniture. I had a pot, and I remember I had a pan, and it was like one of those Teflon pans. It was dented and bent all to whatever. And but I would come down here in the morning, and Lena was not living here yet, but she would come and open the cafe. We both smoked cigarettes, filterless cigarettes at that time. Lena would put on a big pot of coffee. The piano was over here. I, at that time, had gotten used to writing about half of my songs on piano, and I had no piano. What a great opportunity for me to guzzle gallons of coffee, chain smoke cigarettes, hang out with Lena, and try to write on the piano. Lena was just like that. The people that I saw come through here, I've never been a folkie, I guess, because I come from just a musical background that was back when radio was diversified, and one moment you would hear, Henry Mancini, and the next moment you would hear Johnny Cash. My idea of folk, but when I came to the cafe, was, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and Pete Seeger, and Bob Dylan. I guess that's not a bad start. But there was so much more to learn, and you've heard people's names tonight. It goes on, and Lena's open door policy was anybody who was a starving musician could just come and be here. And I just saw so many great people. It's just a wonder. And then I used to be able to sit down and downstairs at the bar and with people like Loudon Wainwright and Bruce Phillips and Lena and Chain Smoke Cigarettes. And it was just a great opportunity. I just have to say there's really no one, it's been mentioned already tonight. I feel very, very thankful for this opportunity to be here, and very thankful for everything that this place and the people in it have given me. I also feel very thankful that I don't think there's any person I know of that could have carried on the tradition the way Sarah has. And thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Sarah, don't worry about that $20. I was happy to say
all right.
it.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so Michael and Terosina are here in person, and then after that, we are going to have Michael Taub and Lou Taub joining by video, and then we're going to take a little intermission. This has really been remarkable. Please welcome Michael Jerling and Terosina Huxtable.
We'll see if I fall off this stool.
Don't do that.
Oh, Terry, I got you.
No, that's okay. Look,
Okay, all right.
you know what? This is perfect.
Okay.
I lied, Sarah. I lied. All right. I'm going to go first, I guess. And I just wanted to know if there's anybody here that's ever been fishing with Lena Spencer. If you have, don't tell me because you'll ruin my story. So. I guess I've been coming here since 1966, and the first person I think I ever saw here was Michael Cooney, and many times after that. But there was one Memorial Day weekend that I remember better than anything else, but I was a little concerned that maybe I wouldn't get I wouldn't quite remember it right. But then I discovered I had this. I don't know if you can see this. this is my
You can't read it,
calendar.
that's for sure.
And if you can't see it from where you are, I can't see it without a magnifying glass either. But this is my writing, and it was May of 1968. And on these weekends here, this is while I was a sophomore at Skidmore. And on the Saturday, the first Saturday in May, I saw the Greenbrier Boys, which we saw many times. And then a third one was Jean Redpath, the first time I'd ever seen her. And I'm happy to say that her poster is next to our poster, Huxtable, Christensen, and Hood, in the ladies' room first stall. Then was Jessie Lone Cat Fuller and Patrick Sky. Now, as a number of people have said, people did 3-day weekends here. And it was usually Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But this Memorial Day weekend, Patrick Sky was going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So in the meantime, this was the end of the semester and when people were going home for summer. And my two roommates and I were here a lot. One of them was the late Liz Hood, my old singing partner. And we had planned to come back to see Patrick Sky on one of those nights. And so when we went to see, we were paying for Jessie Fuller, and Lena, of course, collected all the money. The tip jar was right there next to her. And we made our reservations right there while she was making change about the following week for Patrick Sky. I mean, this was swoon-worthy. I mean, it really, anyhow, she offered us, as she was saying, okay, I've got the reservation, she said, would you like to stay with me? And we said, oh. And we also knew, as Gordon said, that Lena put up almost all of the people that stayed there. And this time she had an apartment over in the Colomer building, which was over what was probably Farmer's Hardware later, and before that, Mabbitt's. Anyhow, in the Colomer building, a big apartment. And we thought, okay, we'll be there staying with Patrick Sky. So this was, oh, yes, please. So now my mother went home. My mother said, you can't go unless you take something to Lena for putting you up. I said, okay. So my mother baked a cherry pie for me to bring. So on the Thursday, we all met here in town, Liz Hood, Julia Page, and me, and came straight up here to the cafe, and I delivered the pie to Lena here at the cafe. So it was a wonderful evening, of course. I should not have been surprised when I saw slices of cherry pie going around. It was suddenly on the menu and gone like that. I mean, Lena would use anything to hand, and she needed to, and to make things. That's how this place worked. So to continue with this Patrick Sky weekend, anyhow, there were some real firsts that happened this weekend. So I guess the first thing might be that after the first night that we were here, Lena, it was a late night, and sometimes there were 3 sets, I think.
Oh, yeah.
3 nights, 3 sets, even on Sunday nights. But this night was late night, and then Lena took us all to Hattie's, the old Hattie's on Congress Street, for supper.
Now, Skidmore girls weren't supposed to go to Congress Street,
What?
were they? Skidmore girls weren't supposed to be on Congress
we
Street?
were out of school at this
Oh,
point.
okay.
Yeah.
That's all right,
This was summer. But she took us out for dinner at 1:30 a.m. And then we had another first, had breakfast at the Four Sons, which was downstairs here. And that, I think, opened at around 2 a.m. Would that be right? Yeah. So it was only for breakfast. So we went from one to the other. And then there was a lot of sleeping going on. And then during the next day, which would be day 2, Patrick Sky took us traipse all around town with him. There were several other people. It wasn't just Liz and Julia and Patrick Sky and Lena and me. There were other people that sort of came along the way. There was a group of people, and we bought bamboo poles for fishing licenses, bait, or as he said, bite, out at Saratoga Lake. And then he had to get jeans at Glickman's. I know all this because it's here. And so when we got back to the cafe, and this is still before, showtime, he showed us all how to put our poles together, set the poles up for the next day. The next morning, 6 a.m., we were on the road to the Bat and Kill, Lena leading the way. Now, of course, Lena never had a car that I know of, never. And she knew that both my two roommates had cars, and so maybe the invitation had something to do with that, I don't know. But there were probably 6 people going fishing. And I have to say, I baited my own hook. I was so proud of myself. And so this was just one of these crazy adventures that she was perfectly up for. And she probably knew that would be what he wanted to do. And so she made it happen. So on the Bat and Kill, we were about 15 feet from Route 29. So no one caught anything. There was not even a nibble. But that's how I went fishing with Lena Spencer.
Oh, dear. And you should have seen her with her magnifying glass reading these things. I am ill-prepared, and one of the reasons is because Bob Warren and I were talking before this event, and he said, what are you going to do? I don't know, what are you going to do? And he said, well, I think I'm going to tell a story about the radio station. I said, I've heard you tell that story. That's my story. And he said, no, it isn't. It's my story. And I don't know whose story it is, but I think we had similar experiences, and that's the nature of memory, and that's why what we're doing tonight is interesting, because you don't know how much of it really happened and how much. I mean, some of it happened, but I think your brain kind of refines it and makes it a set piece over time sometimes. But let me tell you, just to start out, I'm going to tell you this story. It's not really in chronological order of what I'm going to talk about, but I'll just get it out of the way. When I moved here, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but Lena had a radio show at WSPN, and it was at some odd day of the week. It was like the worst day of the week to promote the next show. It was like either after the show or, the week before the show when nobody's there except the locals. Maybe that's why Bob and I were always the guests, because we were local. But so it wasn't in the current location. I can't remember exactly. It was in the Tower building, but it was somewhere else. And it was a stuffy kind of, college radio station with pizza boxes around. And Lena, of course, didn't know how to work the board, so there was an engineer. And so you'd come in, and Lena would be on this table, and she'd be on one side and folding chair, and I'd be, say I was on the other side with my guitar. And she would, ask questions, and I'd play some songs. And it was, I don't know, 3 people were probably listening. I have no idea. But it was something Lena really wanted us to do, and we did it. And but one thing about Lena that a lot of things have been mentioned about Lena's health and so forth. But anyway, I'm in the interview, and Lena says at some point, she says, "So Michael, how long have you been playing guitar?" And I started saying, which is not the best interview question, by the way, but anyway. But I started saying, trying to answer it, make it interesting. And just as I'm jabbering away, Lena, we're on live radio, okay? We're on live radio. So I'm blah, 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 and I'm looking, blah, 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 to the engineer, and finally I kind of nudge her under the table with my toe, and she goes, "So Michael, how long have you been playing the guitar?" And I had to answer it again, because it would have been insulting otherwise. Anyway, that's Bob's story, I guess, but it's a good one. That's why we steal each other's material, I guess. When I thought I might do something about, when I first moved out here, I'm from Illinois originally, and I went to school in Wisconsin, I was in California, and I moved out here in about 75, 76 to Troy, New York, where I knew some old friends from Wisconsin at RPI. Donna Dorrell was the student activities director at that time. And she was also booking the college coffee house circuit for the entire Northeast. And so I had been in California, and the situation broke up with a musical thing. So I came out here. I'd never been east, really. And I came to Troy, and it was like, wow, this is different than San Diego. This is really different. And I felt like a god, sort of, when I was walking. Anyway, it was interesting, though. I loved it. And I lived there for, 2 or 3 years, I guess. And I met a lot of people. People mentioned Jackie Alper's show, Paula Rosenberg, and Don Person, and all those folks, Jill Person, they had kind of adopted me and got me on Jackie's show, and they knew everybody. And Paula, I always said, is the Jewish mother I never had. And she was always promoting me and making me feel guilty for not writing songs and feeding me and many things that kept me going. And so I was in Troy for a while. And then I had been doing the college circuit mostly and touring a lot of the country. And I hadn't really gotten around to doing a lot of private coffee houses and because the money was better in college. I mean, you'd show up and they have a check made out. Woo! 2 people come, check's made out. Doesn't matter. But I started to realize, well, that's fine, except these kids just cycle through and nothing gets built and you don't have an audience. And a lot of my friends were starting to play places. I played some of these places. I played music clubs always. But Caffe Lena was kind of scary because it was like the place, And I don't know if I'd even been to Saratoga, but in those days, what we'd do was we'd have some Xeroxed, inflated bio, and an 8x10 glossy, and eventually cassette tape that you'd stick in. And you'd go down to the post office, send out all these places, and then follow up with phone calls. And I did this with Caffe Lena, and I would call, and I almost never talked to Lena, and then eventually I talked to her. She said, you've got to come and audition. I said, audition? And it's just like, Garnet was saying. And I thought, okay. And so I got directions, and I drove up from Troy, and it was either fall or spring. It was a beautiful day, and I found the little door. I thought, wow, that's kind of a funny little entrance to this place. And everybody remembers the swinging doors, which were perfect for trapping a guitar. Like you'd open with one hand, you'd get the guitar, and then the door would close on that. God help you if you had 2 guitars, you'd have to call for help. And then, those crooked stairs, and kind of went up, and it was afternoon, and it kind of smelled like a little bit of cat box, a little bit of cigarette, a little bit of coffee, a little bit of chocolate chip, it was cool. And I didn't know what to expect with Lena. And so she came out and said, oh, Michael, welcome. Why don't you sit down here at the table, just one of the tables out there. And this kind of scared me to death. Like, I thought I would rather be up on a stage and do an audition than to sit, right across from. She said, oh, you chatted with me and play a few songs for me. So I played, a few of my original songs, and she talked about them, very knowledgeable, and she seemed to be enjoying it. And then I played a really sad song that I was playing at the time called Lullaby, which was about a single mom and a baby, and it was a very emotional song. I played it, and I looked across the table after the song, and there was a tear going down her face. I thought, well, I guess this is good, But then she said, oh, that's a beautiful song, Michael, but don't you think you should add another verse about the father? I didn't think so, but I said, oh, well, gee, I'll think about that. Yeah, okay, maybe I'll do that. But and then soon after that, I moved up here, and the rents were cheap, and there were lots of my musician friends moving into town, and I became one of the local musicians shortly. And I ran into, Bob mentioned, I ran into Tony Markellis, and I knew all these people. I knew Tom Mitchell and Huxtable Christensen Hood, all from Philo Records. Because I would hang out at WRPI, and they were always playing all these people. And I was really excited because they were all connected to Lena and the Saratoga. And when I met Tony, he said, well, I'm playing down, with Paul Siebel or whatever. Why don't you come down and see me? He said, man, I don't have any money. I can't pay. He said, you don't have to pay. You're a musician. You just come on in and hang around in the back. And that was just the coolest thing. And so, particularly on a Sunday night when things were really quiet, you could sit but if, people paying customers there, you stood up and you leaned against the wall or you peeked around the bathroom corner, But it was just so cool. And Terry's going to kick me soon, right? Yeah, that's how, the wife, they kick under the table where you go, oh, what? Yeah, wrap it up. Okay. But anyway, I just want to say that this space lives, we were talking about this, a lot of people. I have two. When I'm up here, I love this space and what's here, but the old cafe is indelibly in my brain, like your childhood home is, where you can see every piece of furniture and stuff. And it's always alive simultaneously. And I wrote a song about the cafe, and it's, so it ends with, there's music here tonight, the light's still on at the cafe. And that's because of you people, so.
Everybody who is on stage tonight is either always in the seats and never on the stage, or never on the stage without an instrument in their hands. So I hand it to all of you for taking this assignment and sharing the stories. Thank you very much. So I'm going to introduce to you now Michael Taub.
Hello, everybody. I hope I can get through this. What a pleasure, huh? What a great night. I made some notes. My parents, my father, you'll see later, they were among the original patrons of the cafe and brought me here when I was young. And I started coming here on my own, probably around late 1967, 1968, when I was in middle school. And one day in November of 1968, my freshman year of high school, Kathy Lux came out and asked me if I wanted to wash dishes, and I said, okay. And later that night, Lena wouldn't let me pay, so she was stuck with me. And I washed dishes here every chance I could through high school, starting in 1968 up until about 72, and on a little bit past that to 74. And what I'd like to talk about is just three, try to be as brief as I can on them, but three just times here, musical memories that I have of those years. I'm going to go in reverse chronological order. The first one was about 1970 or 71, I think. I think someone mentioned Lena's interest in jazz, and she would go down to New York City to look for talent and people to bring up. And she came back from one trip, and she just looked so happy and satisfied and said, Bucky Pizzarelli is going to come to the cafe. And I was out at lunch, and he was at the table, and I told him I had a little cafe in Saratoga, and I would love for him to come up and play music sometime. And he said, I'd love to. So she booked him into a Sunday afternoon, which was really unusual, but I guess he must have just taken the train up and back. And I had no idea who Bucky Pizzarelli was. She would talk about a little bit. He played with Betty Goodman and all this other stuff, and I didn't really know. I mean, I was like 15. I had been playing guitar for 6 months or something. And I arrived at the day, and every guitarist in town was here. In the back, like someone said, hanging out, looking around the corners, just being everywhere. And there were 2 chairs on stage, and it was Bucky Pizzarelli and a young Tony Markellis, who had just moved to town. David Bromberg brought Tony here. Tony was his band, the Fabulous Torpedoes. And he liked it, and he moved here. And he was really young, and he was on stage with Bucky Pizzarelli. And the way they started was Bucky said, I think Tony said, "What do you want to play?" Or Bucky said, "What do you want to play?" And Tony would say, "Let's try Take the A Train." And what key? B flat, and off they went. No fake book, no nothing. And they did that for an hour and a half, just playing the 2 of them. Tony was playing this beautiful fretless bass that he had built that got stolen later. And it was just one of those moments. The whole thing was unbelievable. And that's the kind of thing that would happen here. Years later, I told Paul Siebel about the night, and he looked at me with a puzzled expression and said, "Tony knows jazz standards." The next thing I want to talk about was a little earlier, Thanksgiving of 1969. Anyone know who played here then? Reverend Gary Davis. It was a 4-night stand because Thanksgiving was 4 nights, and like when Reverend Gary Davis or Bruce Phillips would play those gigs, they tried to do it. They did it without repeating a song. And it was 4 nights and 3 sets, and he just kept going. He would be going strong at 1 or 1:30 in the morning to an empty house. It was unbelievable. And no one wanted to leave because it was Gary Davis. And one of the nights he was on stage, right here, Reverend Gary Davis, 1969. He was on stage and he said, "Lena," he called out, "Lena, what do you want to hear?" And Lena was sitting over there by the stairs, and she said, "United States of America Waltz." And he said, "Okay," and he launched into it, if you know that. I've wanted to do this for a long time. So he was up here, and that was the first time Roy Bookbinder came here. You know, Roy Bookbinder, that's when I met him, and it was his first time at the Cafe in 1969 with Reverend Davis. And Gary Davis started out playing United States of America Waltz, which is this long instrumental, and he started going like this. And he started going like this. And then when he got finished, he was right here, just like this, on this wall, facing there. And I was back there with Roy, and Roy looked at me and said, "I hate having to do this." And he walked up on stage and tapped him on the corner and turned him around to face the audience. Another night of that gig, there was someone in the back over there who kept saying, Gary Davis would play his holy songs. You know, he gave up playing the blues in 1930 at a recording session, or earlier than that, because he was a reverend. And he would start out playing holy songs, but these gospel songs, which are terrific. But he knew everyone really wanted to come here to hear the blues. So later in the night, he would start playing his blues songs. And one night, when he started doing it, there was this voice from the back saying, "Cut it out, B. Davis. No one wants to hear that blues music. Come on, play the church music. No, cut it out." And we were in the back room hearing it and wondering what's going on. And Lena walks in with this totally flustered look on her face like I'd never seen. And she said, I don't know what to do. I was going to go back and tell that person to be quiet, but it was his wife. And then the last story is just earlier in that year, which was a big night for me and the town, was, the night Utah Phillips showed up, Bruce Phillips. And what seems hard to believe was before that, Rosalie lived in town, Rosalie Sorrells, and she'd play here at the cafe all the time. And she'd sing his beautiful songs, and she would talk about, her good friend, the Utah, I can't say it. her good friend Lou Taub Phillips, the golden voice of the Great Southwest, and tell all these crazy stories about him. And Lena really wanted to get him out here, and she had booked gigs, they'd planned shows, they'd do all this stuff, and he would never show up. There was always some reason. And so we pretty much all believed that there was no such person, and that he was an alter ego. He was Rosalie's alter ego. She created him as this character, and it seems hard to believe, but that's what we thought. So I came down one night. It was early, maybe January or February '69. I can't remember. And there was this buzz in the cafe. He's here. He's here. And I'm like, who's here? And they were like, Utah Phillips. He's here. I said, I don't believe it. There's no such person. And that night there was a fellow here who looked sort of like Johnny Cash. He was all dressed in black with boots, and his hair was slicked back, and it was black. And I thought, well, maybe that's who it was, but it wasn't. And Lena put Bruce up on a guest set right away. I just want to say he had arrived in a VW bus that he called Hitler's Revenge with Hal Noakes and J.C. Shakanat, who were around for a bit. And she put him up right away, and he played Enola Gay. And I always wondered why that was a song he picked, but I think it turned out he had probably just written it the week before with Eamon Hennessy at a demonstration. He talked about that in his songbook. But Bruce, changed the trajectory of things here. People talk, when Sarah read that piece about Lena's words about a new form of musical entertainment, she and Al McKinney, Bruce, Jim Ringer, they were all here, and they worked hard to come up with this act. And I'm just very grateful that I was here. And now I guess it's to me, they said I get to introduce my father, Louis, who passed away on April 30th, age of 100. He was one of the first patrons here, as I said, and Sarah kindly invited me and him to come and share some stories. And I didn't think he was going to make it. And when I saw she was having video submissions, I called her up and wondered if she could get over. And she and Reese came the next morning and recorded him, and he passed away 10 days later. So, I'm very grateful that he brought me here when I was young, and then they let me stay out here all night. I forgot to say, she mentioned that night after Bruce was here, we all went down to the executive bar. We called it the exec. David Ambram would call it the executive bar, and would play and drink in the back room. And then she took us all over to Hattie's on Congress Street for breakfast. There were probably about 15 people there that night. And then we went home. And that was the end of that story. I got ahead of myself. But anyway, I'm going to introduce my father, Lou Taub, and I'm just grateful for him for so many things. I'm grateful to Lena, and I just want to say brava to Sarah. And thank you very much.
For me and my wife, the cafe was really a big part of our life. It was where we'd go usually every Saturday night. Now, what Lena thought she would get would be local people, but local people never came. The only local people she had some skiddies who would come, but not as patrons. Usually, they were waitresses for her. I could never understand that, but the reason was, I gather, that at that time, at 18, you could drink at a bar. So the Skidmore kiddies would go to a bar instead of coming to Lena. But Lena was very kind-hearted. She would take in a dead cat or anybody who needed help. And a lot of the folkies would end up staying with her. And we were at one time the folk capital of on the East Coast because of Lena Spencer, who was such a big asset to Saratoga. And we have Lena Lane,
which is named for her. And I think she did better in Saratoga than she would ever have done in New York City. And luckily, when she died, there was a ceremony for her at the Presbyterian Church, and Bruce Phillips said that they should close the cafe up. But luckily, some of the other people said, no, let's keep it going. So they hired Sarah Craig, who never met Lena, but has carried on Lena's tradition at the cafe. And if it wasn't for Sarah Craig, I don't think the cafe would still be there. And if Lena came back, she would never recognize it. I mean, we had rickety old chairs that we sat on, tables, rickety tables. She never made any money, and so I think that she did better in Saratoga. She got an honorary degree from Skidmore College, made her a doctor. I thought that was really great. And so Lena was a big influence on Saratoga Springs. Some people think it's a cultural desert, but they don't know about the Caffe Lena and all the people that we came. When Bob Dylan called, Bill Spence, her husband, called me up and said, you ought to come and hear this guy. He's just signed for 5 records with Columbia. Come and hear him. So we decided, I think it was a Thursday or Friday night, there were about 10 people in the audience. He sat in the center drinking whiskey, I guess, and playing his harmonica. And there are lots of stories about them. How true they are, I have no idea. When Bill Spence asked me what I thought, I said he'd never make it. And supposedly the story is, which I do not know if it's true, that Lena said to Bob Dylan, if you gotta get better, if you gotta come back here and play again. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's the story I heard. So that was Bob Dylan's only time that he played at the cafe. But now, if Lena came back and took a look at it, she would marvel at the tables, which were all rickety, and the bentwood chairs, which were, I don't know where she got them, maybe from the track or something, but it's certainly different than when Lena ran the place. And what would happen at that time, you come up the stairs, there wasn't an elevator, and Lena would be at the top of the stairs, and I think it was like a $2 cover charge that she would collect. And Lena never had liquor or drugs at the cafe. A lot of local people thought there were drugs at the cafe, but there never were. Lena never had drugs at the cafe, and she did not have alcohol beverages at the cafe. And it was my wife and my privilege to have met her. She was a force, a big force in our life for a long time. My wife and I used to go every Saturday night, and eventually my son Michael washed dishes there through high school, and so did my son Eric. And I was privileged to have her come as a guest of honor for my son Eric's graduation from high school. And so I have a lot of good memories about Lena Spencer, and she has been, I thought, one of the best things that ever happened to Saratoga Springs when she came with her husband, Bill Spence. Bill Spence, the husband, did not stay around very long. He met a Skidmore student at that time. Skidmore was just women, and he left Lena. And Lena did not have another companion, except she had a man named Tom, I think his name was. And where Tom came from, I have no idea. But he used to stay at the cafe too. And Lena had a cat named Pasha. She couldn't afford to stay at the last apartment on Broadway that was at the Algonquin Hotel, but then she couldn't afford the rent, so she stayed at the cafe at the end of her life. And what happened was she eventually fell down the stairs and died from that fall. But we should all be happy that she started the cafe and that Sarah Craig has carried on that tradition and done a wonderful job of keeping the cafe open and expanded all the programs it had. Lena never had that. Lena was always living from paycheck to paycheck. I don't think some days she probably couldn't even make the paycheck. But she was a big force in my life and my wife's life at the Caffe Lena.
You know, that was an amazing experience that Sarah Taub and Michael arranged for Reese and I to be able to go up and talk to Lou just so shortly before he died. And it felt so important to have his voice in the mix here. Not only had he seen so many of the sort of monumental moments in Caffe Lena's history, but he and really all of the Taubs, and I want to give this shout out to the Taub family, are the most encouraging people that I could imagine. They just treat you like a hero and are always expressing gratitude, and it really makes you feel good and keep going. So thank you to them. Thank you to Lou for all the good things he's done. So we're going to take a little intermission now, and when we come back, we're going to have a video from Andy Spence. And then George Ward is coming on right after that. Thank you.
I hope you're enjoying the show tonight. Here are a few of our upcoming concerts we think you might enjoy. Check out the full schedule in the upcoming live stream section of Caffe Lena TV, and join us for more live music. Thanks for watching this live performance from Caffe Lena. You're supporting independent music and the mission of our historic nonprofit venue. You can find out more information about the legacy of Caffe Lena and our diverse programming at caffelena.org. Subscribers to Caffe Lena TV can find the archived recording of this show in the recent live streams playlist for 2 weeks after the live broadcast, and each ticket buyer will automatically have access to the show during that period. These live streams are made possible by our community of subscribers. Special thanks to our Virtuoso level subscribers and lifetime Caffe Lena members. Please consider becoming a subscriber to Caffe Lena TV. You get unlimited access to over 200 live streamed shows per year, as well as on-demand viewing for 2 weeks after each live broadcast. There are discounted annual plans available, as well as monthly options, and you get to see exclusive shows available only to our subscribers. Join us in building a sustainable platform for independent music. Caffe Lena TV is also available to subscribers on iOS and Android mobile apps, as well as Roku Smart TV devices. Just search Caffe Lena TV in the store and log in using the same information you use on your browser. It's that easy. You can leave an additional donation to support the artists on stage tonight and our nonprofit venue by clicking the currency symbol below the chat and following the instructions. A box will pop up over the screen, and the show will continue playing underneath. The Caffe Lena School of Music offers group music lessons in person and online. Archived classes are available for purchase through caffelena.org, and all access subscribers on Caffe Lena TV can get a selection of full courses for free. Find out more about our music school and our amazing instructors at caffelena.org/school. The Caffe Lena online store is open. Go to caffelena.org and click Shop to find all the current Caffe Lena merchandise, including shirts, hats, mugs, posters, and lots more. Come visit us on Phyla Street in Saratoga Springs, New York. There's always something going on every night of the week.
Okay, welcome back for set number 2. Thanks for sticking around. So, as you, most of you in the audience are already members of Caffe Lena, but you know, during our anniversary month every year for the last few years, we've been running this membership drive, and we just try and get like whatever the anniversary number is in new members or members coming back to the fold after a long lapse or members renewing at a higher level. So this year the goal is to get 66 people, and it's turned into a really wonderful sort of little boost of income for the cafe and for all the programs that we do here. So there are extra incentives to sign up this month. And there's a big poster in the lobby, and our tour is the one that you want to sign up with. So if you are in arrears on your membership or ready to join finally, please talk to him on the way out. So we're going to hear from Andy Spence. This is another one where I'm just so glad that we have a story on video. Andy's fine, but she wasn't feeling well enough to be here tonight. She's 90, 91? 90? 88. Close. So anyway, but Andy is a very important part of the cafe, so we're going to hear from her now.
Moved here in 1965, and it wasn't long before we came back up. We came up here, and Lena was not. Her resources were low. You know, she didn't have a lot of resources to keep the cafe going well. So Bill actually brought up our extra sound equipment and made the sound system better. And he would set it up in the old hallway, which went into the kitchen. Shortly after Lena had gotten told by the town that they had to close because of the heat and the old stove, the old wood stove and the everything. We in the PSG, Pickin' and Singin' Gathering, did a benefit at the Bethlehem Coffee House and raised $2,000. Doesn't sound like much today, but in those days it helped her remodel the bathrooms and get the stove sorted out and everything so she could stay in business. So she did. At that concert, even Bob Dylan showed up. It was shortly after his motorcycle accident. And you hardly could recognize him. But he came to our house to the party afterward. And we were all so dumbfounded that we all just sort of walked around him. we didn't even talk to him. But the other people who came to that concert were people from Sing Out Magazine, Erwin Silber, and people that supported folk music in that era. I think the concert was in '69. I can't remember for sure. Anyway, there were people on that concert that were up and coming, you know. And I remember Frank Wakefield, Don McLean, I don't remember everybody anymore without looking at the poster.
That's fair.
But anyway, then Bill came up. We came up pretty frequently, almost every weekend to record. And we recorded everybody in the 70s, practically. And I made Lena her clothes. I made her these big tent dresses. We also did a big, PSG did a big concert about Woody Guthrie. It's called California to the New York Island. It's a script with music. And so I hired Don McLean and Michael Cooney to do that concert, and Lena did the narrative, and members of the Pickin' and Singin' Gathering did the songs, a lot of the songs. So I forget how much money we raised with that. So after that, I made Lena some dresses. Margaret MacArthur came one time to cut her toenails. I don't suppose anybody'd be interested. Her toenails were terrible. So Margaret had to come and do that. She took showers in the back room on the floor on a tarp. She lived here then.
Yeah.
Because she didn't have an apartment anymore. She had a lot of friends among the performers. And she gave many of them their start, you know, the real chance to perform in front of an audience that actually listened to them, you know, which was not true of a lot of places. So she she fell down the stairs that night, and I was out working in the yard, and because I'll never forget that, I got a call from somebody in the PSG to tell me that she had fallen and was in a coma. And George Ward, you know George?
Yeah.
Yeah. He called and he said, "We need your help, Andy." And I said, "Okay," because I was running my own business then. I had a folk music mail order business, and so I was in retail. and I knew how to do business. And so George asked me to come and help Jan Nargi, who was Lena's niece. So we set up a trust fund for the money, because the cafe was still open, and I helped organize the memorial. I helped organize the videoing of Dave Bromberg and everybody for WMHT. And I helped everywhere. I pretty well organized a lot of it. And so to keep it running, we had to make use of all the money that kept pouring in for the trust fund. We opened a trust fund to put the money in so that it could be used to run the cafe in the meantime. But as a result of it all, and the trust fund holding it together for a while, finally Steve Fry and members of the PSG stepped up, and Rosalie Clark became the treasurer, took it from me. I was doing all the money up to that point, and Rosalie took it, and then Steve Fry wrote the nonprofit paperwork, and they got it. They did get it into a nonprofit status, so that they could hire somebody. Then they hired Barb Harris, who had been here working. She had been a volunteer up to that point, but then they hired her to run the cafe, and here we are today. And I'm glad it still survives.
That is such an important chapter that a lot of people don't know too much about, how it survived right after Lena died so unexpectedly, and there was no succession plan. And Andy was an important part of that chapter. So for anybody who doesn't know her, she and her husband founded Old Songs, the festival and concert organization that operates out of Voorheesville. So she is one of the long-standing anchors of folk music in the Capital Region, and she made a very generous donation to the cafe this year to run our Wednesday morning Folk Club Kids concert series for the whole year, every single week. And then after she made that donation, she came with that banner. She surprised us with that banner that she had sewed, Folk Club Kids. So that's why that was in there. That was the day that she stopped in with the banner to give it to us, which is always on stage now during the Wednesday morning concerts. And I wasn't here that morning, and I said, Mateo, get a mic in front of her and get some stories. And I'm so glad that she could have been part of this night. So please welcome to the stage, George Ward.
What Andy did not tell you was the ticket price for that benefit that raised the money that allowed the cafe to stay open? $2 a ticket. 1968 or 69. Different world. Different world when the cafe opened. Anybody remember teachers having to sign loyalty oaths? Remember red channels? Remember going to folk events and having somebody tell you, don't sign anything, because that was the way it was. What was I going to say? Well, what I came up with was a very simple last sentence. You don't always recognize when the next important step in your personal journey is going to happen, or when it happens. October 11th, 1960. I had graduated from Union College in early June of 1960, had no idea that Lena and Bill had opened a cafe. Not sure I would have known when it was. And so I came back to Union in the fall of 1960. Some friends who were involved, among other things, in the intercollegiate outing club said, you ought to come up for this Columbus Day weekend. And okay, where is it? Well, where it was at the home of Paul Schaefer, the architect. If there's anything architecturally interesting in Niskayuna, it's probably because of Paul. And his kids were teenage kids at that time, son Cub and older daughter Evelyn, younger daughter Monica. And I don't know where I stayed, but we stayed in their house, which had that amazing map that Paul Schaefer and a number of friends had built over years. No computers in those days to do it. It was a relief map of the Adirondacks that hung up there. It still does in that room to that day. There's a window seat right below it. There are deep set windows in that stone house. There should be a plaque there because they said, well, you've got to come back on Sunday because Mr. Older is going to come down. Well, who was Mr. Older? Well, it was Lawrence Older and his wife, Martha. Lawrence ultimately, or subsequently, had an album of his traditional songs and traditional fiddling made by Sandy and Caroline Payton and Lee Haggerty of Folk Legacy Records. That hadn't happened yet. But so I showed up and I had my guitar, and for some reason we hit it off. And I remember sitting in that windowsill with Lawrence for what felt like hours, just backing him up on whatever tune he came up with next. He had grown up in Middle Grove and up on the mountain toward Lake Desolation in a house that the wind blew through with perfect freedom. Worked sometimes cleaning up in a lumber camp kitchen for his mother when he was 8, 9 years old. Left school at the end of 6th grade. There's a story there I won't tell you. It's a good one, but not tonight. And but he, like several others in his family, never stopped reading, never stopped learning. I always thought that the saddest day, I was glad they'd moved to Florida because the day that the Saratoga Library stopped running the bookmobile, I think would have broken his heart. So at some point in the afternoon, somebody said, well, we ought to go up to Caffe Lena. What's Caffe Lena? Well, they said, you'll find out, or words to that effect. So up we came. A couple of my friends, Roger Gregory and Dennis Ricker, and the two Schaefer daughters, Monica and Evelyn, the older. And partly because everybody wanted to hear Monica sing. She's one of those kids who at the age of about 16 had an absolutely ethereal voice. And you just, if you were a young guy, you just sat there and melted. So, but where and what was Caffe Lena? And up the stairs we came. And it was the old L-shaped room, and it was very, very sparse. It had that wood or coal stove, I forget which one it actually was. And it was not for an event. There was no headliner that day. As a matter of fact, I looked through Brett Bederk's wonderful catalog of people that played the cafe, and there's very little in October of 1960. Smoke Dawson played the next weekend, but whether there was anything at the cafe whether there was a performer, I don't know. There was what would have been called at that time a hootenanny. Just people. Nowadays you would call it a sing-around. I'm not sure there were any open mics in those days, but there was no mic at the Caffe Lena. And you look back those old pictures of Tom Paley or of Jackie Washington, Jack Landrone, playing here, no mic, no nothing. I should have brought two things up tonight. I should have brought the original sound system. It was about that big. Two 12AX7 tubes, for anybody who remembers what they were, that Bill Spence gave me one time. The other thing, of course, I should have brought was a concertina, but there you go. And so we got up here and we swapped tunes. I probably sang something. I can't remember what in the world I would have sung. And Monica at least did. I don't know if Evelyn ever sang that much. It was absolutely unremarkable. And that's what I want you to understand, because on that unremarkable afternoon, a lot of my life changed for good. I met Lawrence, who was the first real tradition bearer, I thought then, that I had ever met. Later on, I met my father and realized he was a tradition bearer. I'd known him all my life. But that's where I started becoming a folklorist. It's probably where I started thinking about playing in places like Caffe Lena. It's all of that. Do I remember Lena? Yes, as a very energetic person. I mean, we've been telling stories, and they're all true about how aged and infirm Lena got. But I remember calling Dallas Klein, who had had a folk music radio program in Saratoga in the 1950s, and saying, "What was your first impression of Lena?" And Dallas said, "My impression was that whatever she set out to do, she was going to do." And that was Lena in those days. Absolutely. Bill seemed like the authority in the place, maybe, but Lena seemed like the person who got it done. And that did not change. I could ramble on, and I probably shouldn't. So I leave you not with a thought from me, but just because I came across it in the Caffe Lena book that Jocelyn Aram wrote. There's somebody else we should talk about. But she had a quote from Jack Landrone, Jackie Washington Landrone. Didn't use his Puerto Rican name in those days. But he sent something or gave Joss an interview. I'm not sure it's entirely true, but I think it's true enough to be worth leaving him with the last word. I don't even think she paid much attention to the music people sang in her club. She picked up on the vibe the performer would permeate the air with. She was much more interested in love, if you will. That sounds so hokey, but it was really about, I see you and you see me, how are you? And good to see you. So I'm out of here. the way I came in.
Yeah, that's the better way.
You all have
All right, thank you, George. Wonderful. Please welcome back to the stage Joe Bruschack.
I thought I knew what I was going to say before I came here tonight, and after hearing everyone else, I'm going, I can't say that. There's so much that has been said that touches so many people in so many ways. It reminded me that actually I was born in Saratoga Hospital. My family goes back in this area, this region, for more than 400 years. And Lawrence Older ran away and joined the circus with my grandfather. There's all these different connections that we come across because Lena was a connector. She was like the connective tissue of folk music and story for not just this place, but for an entire country. I mean, seriously, she had ripples that went from coast to coast and are still moving. People whose lives really began here, understanding who they were for the first time, and then becoming even more that person who would touch other lives as well. So think of Lena as a tidal wave of good, and I think you're getting close to who she was and who she still is. I actually had to make notes on my phone because there were so many things it reminded me of. I mean, the first time I came here, by the way, people in Saratoga who didn't know the cafe thought it was a den of iniquity. And, you know, my mother was horrified when my sister Margaret, my little sister, who was 6 feet tall, began to come here to wait tables. She was sure it was going to ruin her life, and Marge said, "No, it's all right, Mom. My life was ruined well before I came here." I remember Marge telling me, for example, that Lena said when Marge began to wait tables here, people would come and they'd wait tables and stick around, and Lena said, "Marge, be sure to wear the shortest dress you can. You'll get better tips that way." But the idea that Lena was often very outrageous. And I remember so many times I'd come up those stairs and she'd be sitting at the top of the stairs, smoking one cigarette after another, playing Scrabble with Tom, old Tom, the railroad man. And as you already heard once tonight, every now and then during shows you'd hear, "That's not a word." As something went on in the Scrabble game, either Dorothy or Brownell or Tom was trying to get away with something, and Lena never let anyone get away with anything, quite frankly, whether it was on stage or off. You know, I first met Bruce Phillips here. I had just come back from 3 years of volunteer teaching in West Africa, and I walked up those stairs, and Bruce was sitting there with a friend of ours, a friend of his at the time, named Hal Noakes. Hal was a candle maker. He invented something called hand candles. And they were talking, and I, by the way, my own background is a little checkered. I was involved in the civil rights movement. I marched with Martin Luther King. I was involved in the anti-war movement. So I was always a little suspicious of people sometimes when I met them for the first time. Bruce seemed too good to be true. He and Hal were talking such radical stuff, I thought, they gotta be narcs. But in fact, Bruce was a person that, the kind of person that Lena loved, an original, a person who saw and heard things in his own way. And by the way, Bruce often wrote the graffiti about himself in the bathroom. One of my favorites, written in Bruce's handwriting, was, "You, Urinal Phillips, the golden groin of the great Southwest." That was Bruce in more ways than one. And when you consider what happened here in so many ways, Peter Davis up here, Peter and I had both been in Africa. Peter was teaching in East Africa. I was teaching in West Africa. We met here at the cafe. In fact, we did programs together. We did poetry and music programs. We wrote songs together. We wrote an album just called Peter Davis that is somewhere around still in archives. And Peter and I also went to Vermont and did poetry and music in the schools for about 3 years together. And Peter was the kind of person who naturally stepped up when the cafe needed to be saved. Lena created the people who would help the cafe to survive. She created the energy, the spirit, and the love, pure love, that has gone into this place in so many ways, for so many years with so many people. You heard mention of wildflowers tonight and Al McKinney. Al McKinney wore out so many pairs of shoes walking up and down Broadway in his lifetime. He also told me he was writing an autobiography called A Million Miles Backwards about hitchhiking across America back and forth again and again. And if you performed at a folk festival, often you'd find yourself being introduced by none other than Al McKinney. The fact that he called himself Captain Fun, that we now have the Captain Fun series using this incredible record collection that he put together, which is now the property of Caffe Lena. That is a marvelous thing to think about, that we have that to remember. By the way, I remember when Wildflowers got evicted from Franklin Square. I was involved with the group at the time. I was sort of an ex officio member. And I remember the fireplace in that building, because that's where Loudon Wainwright smashed and burned his guitar one time when he and Kate McGarrigle had a little bit of an argument, but that's another story. And when they were evicted, Bruce and also Pat and Victoria Garvey moved in with my wife and myself and lived with us for about a year or two. And there are many stories there, but one of the funnier ones, maybe not so funny, is that at the same time, Don Armstrong was coming up as a musician and was a real fan of Pat and Victoria's. And then Don moved out to the Southwest. And then Victoria, one night, packed up the VW van, threw their German Shepherd in with her, and ran off to join Don Armstrong and became Don and Victoria Armstrong. A wonderful duo. By the way, Pat remained a friend of mine, and he actually wrote a song which was, the lyrics were, "I guess I understand why you went away, but did you have to take my dog?" Yet another thing to remember is we've heard the name of Patrick Skye. We haven't heard so much the name of Dave Van Ronk. Dave was such an important part of this place. And he and Lena, well, they were a couple in the same sense that like a mother and a son are a couple. He was the person she cared for. Whenever Dave was down and out, Lena would book him for a 3-day weekend. And then he'd come up and end up living here for a month in the back room and writing songs and talking about how proud he was now with his Actors Equity card. And Dave was, what a wonderful character, a person who really could talk your head off. In fact, I had a beautiful shirt that had been made for me in Nigeria. It was embroidered, and I would wear it sometimes when I came to the cafe. And I would go downstairs and drink with Patrick Skye and Dave Van Ronk. And one day I was wearing that shirt, and Dave looked at me this way. He had kind of like, Joe, can I buy that shirt from you? No, I'm not going to sell it to you, Dave. I'll tell you what, I'll trade you an original Ma Rainey recording for that shirt. Pretty amazing. I said, no, thank you, Dave. Then he looked at me, and he looked at Patrick, and Patrick and I had a lot in common, because Patrick, who passed away a few years ago, was also a person of Native ancestry. He was Choctaw. And there's this thing about Native culture. If someone admires something of yours in the right way, well, Dave looked at me and said, okay, in that case, will you give it to me? So I took off the shirt. Dave put it on and wore it while he played his second half that evening at the cafe. Patrick Skye. Patrick's life was changed by this place. There was an Elian piper who came from Ireland. played She Beg and She More, the Big Fairy, the Little Fairy Hill. And Patrick and I were sitting together, and Patrick was rapt. He listened to that music like it was speaking his life to him. His Irish heritage was coming to him. And Patrick, soon after that, moved to Ireland, learned not just to play, but how to make Elian pipes. Went back home to North Carolina and became the most famous American maker of Elian pipes for 40 years. And that was because of Caffe Lena, another one of those ripples. The last little story I want to share with you is actually about Patrick and Dave. One night I was down in the exec with them, and they were having a contest. Who could come up with the most unusual way to commit suicide? They came up with all kinds of different things, and finally Patrick won because he said, what I'm going to do is fill a bathtub with hand cream, climb in, and soften to death. I wanted to share a little thing on this. This double flute has two sides. Harmony, just like music and storytelling, have always gone together here. And this is just something for Lena's spirit. Oleoni, Lena.
If there is a ghost here, she's having a great night. All right. I'm going to remember to do something now that I have been forgetting. So next we have John Crebs, and then we're going to have videos from Don Armstrong, just mentioned, and then Lou and Peter Barryman, and then followed up by Field Horn, Field. Okay, so get ready. You're sort of on deck. All right. Would you please welcome John Crebs?
Hello. I met Lena Spencer in the winter of 1977. I was living in Potsdam, 3.5 hours north of here, which was a great music town, but it was 3.5 hours from any place. So I had decided to follow the advice of one of my friends and try to get a foothold in the college coffee house circuit. And there are 1 billion colleges in the Northeast. So, you know, I would look through this book of colleges and go. And I told my friend I was going to check out Skidmore because they had Lively Lucy's was a pretty well-known coffee house. And he said, while you're in Saratoga, check out Caffe Lena. It's this funky little coffee house, and this crazy old lady runs it. I didn't say that. I mean, I just said it, but he said it. And so I came to Saratoga, and I set up an appointment. What I used to do back then, you know, everybody had their little promo package, and if you just mailed them out, they usually got ignored. And so what I would do is I would take my little promo package and hand deliver it and ask if I could audition. And that got me plenty of work. It was good. I think I was a lot more fearless than I am now. But that's what I did. And so I went to Skidmore, and basically I got stood up. I waited for about 3 hours for the person I was supposed to meet, and they didn't show, and it was starting to get dark, and it was cold, and it was kind of a snowy, rainy drizzle. I said, okay, I'll find this little coffee house. And I came down here and grabbed my big old guitar and came to the door and knocked, and nothing happened. And I knocked again, and nothing happened. And because I had been sort of frustrated that day, I knocked again. And I was just about to leave when the door opened. And this woman who was wearing, as I recall, a house coat, said, "Can I help you?" And I told her who I was and could I play for her. And she said, "Well, I'm just about to have supper." She was living at the cafe. Lena was living here. "But if you want to play while I'm eating, that's fine." So I did. And the kitchen, as I recall, was over there wherever you guys are. And so she sat down with her meal, and I got my guitar out, and I played for her for about half an hour, played some of my own stuff, played some blues, played some this and that. And when I finished, she said, "It would be great if you came back and did a guest set." Great. Except I live 3.5 hours from here, and so I got to find something else in the area so that I can make the trip worthwhile. That's end of part 1 of the story. Here comes part 2. That summer, I went to what was called a coffee house convention. This was before NERFA, before the Folk Alliance, and boy, it was cool. And I think it was in Oneonta, but I might have the wrong town, but I think it was there. It was, yeah. What's that? It was. It was, thank you. And and I really did not know anybody, and nobody knew me. But I had managed to get a showcase. And so the night of the showcase starts, and I'm standing in the back of the room. Lena was attending this coffee house convention, and she was a superstar. Everybody wanted to talk to Lena. Everybody wanted to play at Lena's. I don't know if she even noticed that I was there, but I'm waiting to go on for the showcase, and I'm in the back of the room, and Lena is sitting with a bunch of people in the front of the room. And all of a sudden, she stands up and turns around. "John! Oh, John! Come sit with us." "I can't, Lena. I'm going to go up and play in a few minutes." Already, everybody in the room is looking. Who is Lena talking to? I said, "I've got to go on in a few minutes." And she said, "Oh, we're looking forward to that." So, I mean, really, what are you going to do? I was in love. And, not in that, romantic way, but holy mackerel, who would do that for me? And that's really the end of the story, except that, as has been said a few times, Lena touched a lot of lives. In my life, I ended up moving to Saratoga, partly in large part because of the folk music community that had been growing around the cafe. Michael Jerling, Bob Warren, the St. Regis String Band, which was from my part of the world, had moved down here because of the folk scene here. And so I moved here in 1979, and I've basically been around here ever since. And I guess that's my story. Thank you.
Hello, Caffe Lena, and happy anniversary. 66 years, my goodness.
The cafe has been my home away from home for 63 of those years, and I'm forever grateful to Lena for opening her door to me and taking me under her wing. And I'm forever grateful also to Sarah Craig, who has carried on such a vital tradition with such an historic and important venue as the cafe. There have been so many nights at the cafe that have changed my life. For example, meeting my wife Victoria there in 1970. But the night that is first and foremost to me is always the night that Bob Dylan came up in 1965, just a few weeks short of my high school graduation. He was reaching a pinnacle right then. He had just recorded, or was just about to record, Like a Rolling Stone, and a month later he was going to go electric at Newport. So my friend Paula Rutstein picked me up and gave me a ride into town. And as we were walking up the steps to the cafe, we noticed just something very strange. There was an electricity in the air. Something was very different. And I went into the kitchen and said hi to my good friend Danny Stetkar, who was the kitchen manager at that time, and said, "Danny, what's going on?" And he was kind of evasive, dodged the question. I said, "Hey man, come on, let me hear what's happening." And he whispered to me, "I'm not supposed to tell you, but Bob Dylan is coming. Don't tell anybody." And of course I promised I wouldn't, and immediately went out and told Paula. And we sat down on the daybed, and I sat on the edge of the daybed, and right next to me was the door that led to the back room. It wasn't a green room back there. It was just filled with clutter and junk. And as I looked through the door, I saw Bob Dylan sitting in a chair playing a guitar and singing a song underneath a naked light bulb. I couldn't hear what he was singing because of the noise from the cafe, but I nudged Paula and went, and she looked in there and she kind of let out a little shriek, and I said, "Shut up, you'll get us kicked out." And Lena came out and said, you guys are welcome to be here, to be part of this, but you can't tell anybody, and don't talk to Bob unless he talks to you first." And she told us we'd have to move over to the table by the wood stove because Bob wanted to sit where I was sitting. I mean, who wouldn't? But anyway, Bernice Johnson Reagan was the performer that night. And it was, I think, her first solo show at the cafe after being in the Freedom Singers. And she was incredible. And after each song, well, Dylan came out first of all, and we could see he was kind of drunk. He had a little stagger, and he sat where I had been sitting, and right at the edge of the daybed. And after each song, he would start to applaud and start to fall over off the daybed. And he was there with his bodyguard, we thought anyway. And his bodyguard would pull him back up onto the daybed. But what impressed me the most was that Dylan only used the ladies' room. And I was so impressed with his songs. His songs were shaping my life. I had first heard Freewheelin' Bob Dylan in the theater right next to the cafe, and it just blew me away. And so when I saw him using only the ladies' room, I thought, well, that's something only heroes do. And it was later I probably came to the realization that the ladies' room was the closest room, and he needed a room fast. So he stayed for one set, and Paula and I, after the show, drove home and didn't say a word to each other, because here was a man who was changing my life in a fast and incredible way. And many years later, when Victoria passed away, I knew I had to jump back into performing with both feet as a solo now. And I was inspired by two things. One was her incredible voice, her personality, and when she sang, there was an essence to her voice. It was a spirit that was joyous, that couldn't help but come through with every note that she sang. And I tried to find that essence within myself. I tried to find that joy that was that essence and use that to sing to people. And I found it. And the other influence was the young Bob Dylan. That spirit, again, that joy, that essence that he put into his songwriting and to his personality, because he was so jovial back in those days, back in the beginning especially. And I am forever grateful to have both of those influences and inspirations in my life. And I am forever grateful to them. I'm forever grateful to Lena and Sarah, of course. I love you all, and I look forward to seeing you in October. Thank you all.
Hi, we're Lou and Peter Barryman. We just wanted to mention what it was like the first time we played Caffe Lena. It was
in 1985.
1985, October 11th. We had just played Rochester, and we were going to play Bath, Maine the next day.
And it was our very first Eastern tour.
It was.
And we were nervous.
We were excited, but we were very nervous. And we had heard about all the Utah Phillips and Andy Cohen and Cooney and all these stellar people who had made Caffe Lena their home, and we were really excited. So we got lost on the way there. This was in the days before GPS.
So of course we were lost all the time, but this was the first time we were really seriously lost on the way to what we regarded as an important gig. So we were, and we had, it was our first time out east, and you guys got some weird roads out there, and they're weird names. Now, why in the world would you have a Highway 9 and a Highway 9A?
I asked you.
Really? So we're driving around, and this was the beginning of our weird luck, I think. This is, what do they talk about children or stupid people or something, and how the world takes care of them in some weird way. Anyway, so we're driving around lost as hell in our 1976 Centennial Green car, and it was Peter's car, not mine.
We called it the Green Banana.
And we must have gone by the same place more than once. And so I don't know whether we were on 9 or 9A, but we were trying to find Saratoga. No wonder I didn't have the name right. Anyway, so we were driving around lost, and someone actually flagged us down and said, "I noticed your Wisconsin plates. Are you guys lost?"
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. Where the hell is Saratoga Springs? And they set us straight and put us on the way, and we found Phyla Street. Now, I always remember how peculiar, because I thought, did they just not have room for Philadelphia on that side? Anyway, so we parked the car, and found Lena's and walked here.
Trudged up those funky stairs, and we were kind of delighted that it was funky because we're kind of funky and we've played funky places, but we were just so excited about the traditions associated with the place and so on, and we came in and we can't exactly remember how it happened, but at some point, very much like right after we got there, we heard Lena say to somebody something like, "Could you pick me up some cheese while you're out and don't get any of that damn Wisconsin crap?" And we thought, oh my God, we're in for trouble.
And I don't remember Lena saying damn or crap, so
That might
Peter
have-
does very distinctly, but who knows?
It was along those lines, though, and
And Lena even repeated that story a couple of times when she introduced us many years later.
Yeah.
On Beyond.
yeah, we played there a number of times over the years since then, and yeah, she'd always bring that up. It was a bonding experience,
Absolutely. Because we did say, Wisconsinites.
Right.
Anyway,
So-
we made up, of course, and the rest is history. But we have had always had great audiences at Lena.
Yep.
Always had a good relationship with Lena herself and found her very, very interesting, and one of the many interesting and one of the most eccentric people we've met along the road. And there have been a lot of them, including yours truly. So thank you, Caffe Lena, for very many, 66 now, wonderful years.
Congratulations and really thanks. We've had a ball there, and despite the cheesy introduction, everything's been fine. It's been great. Lots of memories. So thanks.
Thank
and
you.
Maybe someday we'll manage to trudge out there again. Who knows?
Who knows?
Bye.
Never say never.
Right.
Turn it off, Peter.
Okay.
Don Armstrong and then Lou and Peter Barryman. What fun. Okay, field horn, it is your turn. And then after that, Jack and Connie Hume. And then we'll have a video from Christine Lavin. And then we wrap up with the grand finale by Joe Dool, the sound man.
Well, I first came up the stairs in February of 1976. I was in grad school in Cooperstown, and there is nothing in Cooperstown, especially in the winter. That was the winter it went down to minus 41 one night, and I had an MG and it wouldn't do anything. I had enjoyed folk music for a long time. Like Christine Lavin, I had watched Laura Weber on TV when I was about 10. And actually, Christine and I lived about 15 miles apart at that point. I never got to learn the guitar. And Peter Davis tried, but many years later, but I didn't succeed. So came up the stairs with a friend from Cooperstown, and the place was packed out, couldn't stay. I moved to Boston Spa 2 years later, and I started coming right away. I remember I used to order a Vichy and chocolate chips, which kept the bill to about 75 cents. And it was in 1985 that a job ended, and Lena commiserated with me, and she said she wanted me to help out, and I started helping out all the time. And of course, that lasted about 4 years, and then we had to go into organizing the cafe without Lena. But even though it's so many years ago, it's funny how you remember things. You don't remember what you had for dinner 3 nights ago, but you remember Lena saying, "Good evening and welcome to Caffe Lena." Everyone here has heard that. How about, "Do you have a reservation?" And this would be on a night when the place was stark empty and the book was empty and 2 people showed up. And that was, I remember that in particular, that was the first night Pierce Pettis played here. And only 2 people came. One was a Skidmore graduate with her husband to see where she used to hang out as a student. So that was Pierce's entire audience the first night he played. And another thing she used to say, which was very tricky, was, "Field, would you like to see the show tonight?" Oh, Lena, I'd like that very much. Yes, this would be at 20 minutes of 8. Well, can you be here in 5 minutes? This would be on a night when, say, Jimmy Jenkins had refused to wash dishes or something. So I had to rush down and help out with that. I helped her move out of her 23-room apartment in the Collimer building, the south half of the second and third floors. When she moved to the, I'm not sure whether it's the Image or the building next door, and she lived there for a while, and then she moved to what was above Manna, and finally she landed here. And I do remember very clearly when she said, "Come look, Field, I have a baby pool and I can take a shower." She stepped into, she didn't have water in it at the time, but she stepped into the pool and she just mimed throwing water on herself. It was pretty amazing how she survived. Also, I was present one day when the fire inspector came. And this is not in the early years when, George Ward was here 16, 18 years before I was. But the place was still pretty funky. And the fire inspector started pointing out all these things that were wrong, and Lena started shrieking. And he ran down the stairs. So I'll tell you my two favorite stories about one is about Lena and one is just about the cafe. The first one, and George Ward and I spoke about this a week ago. George thinks I told him the story, and I think George told me the story. But I heard it the year Lena died, and if it didn't actually happen, it should have happened. I think it was maybe it was the day that this Jimmy Jenkins, whom I don't know where he was around 30 years ago, and I haven't seen him since then, but he was the dishwasher, and his father ran the hospital in those days. And John Wynne Evans came up the stairs and he said, "Oh, Lena, we want to go dancing at the rafters. Can you give me some money?" And so she handed him a $20 bill. And Jimmy Jenkins saw this, and of course he'd been working for $5 as a dishwasher, and he took off his apron, folded and walked down the stairs, and I don't think he ever came back. But this was the sort of occasion when Lena would just kind of get into panic mode when she didn't have enough help. And the story goes, whether it's true or not, that a woman from Albany came up the stairs with her guitar, and she was starstruck by Lena, as John Krebs just told us, this wonderful tale kind of in the same vein. And she got to the top of the stairs, and Lena was shorthanded, and Lena was panicking. And she rushed out to the top of the stairs, and I can hear her say, "Yes." And the young woman said, I. And Lena said, "Want to become a waitress? Oh, good." And she did. And some of you will remember Carol Crandall, who was a waitress here, and her daughter Dawn, very, very bright girl. She was probably about 14 at the time. And she probably wasn't technically a waitress, but she was helping out. And Odetta was performing. And Odetta stayed with me on at least 2 occasions and smoked, and I could smell it pervading the house because she was in a room that was off on the side, and I shouldn't have been able to smell it, but I did. So Odetta was in the back, preparing herself as only Odetta could do. And I remember we went to the Ash Grove that night for dinner, and Zachary Solov, when Odetta went to the ladies' room, Zachary Solov said, "Is that Odetta Gordon?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Wow, she's pulled herself together," or something like that. Well, anyway, Dawn was standing over there, and Odetta came out of the back room, the back room actually. And Dawn was so excited. She said, "Oh, Miss Odetta, will you play whatever?" And Odetta raised herself up to her greatest height and said, "Child, don't you ever speak to Odetta before she's going on stage." And Dawn just shrank, you know. She survived. She's done very well in life. I guess I'll just mention one more thing, which is that it was very hard to keep the place going, and I was the host for Jan, Lena's niece, on a number of occasions, including the night that Lena fell down the stairs. And I didn't want to see the place close. It certainly looked like it should, given the finances. And I remember going to the bank with Jan, Narji, and Andy Spence to open the safe deposit box. Can you imagine what was in Lena's safe deposit box? Well, no, because she always threw them out or cashed them. No, there were 4 rubber bands. Now, I'm not sure where the certificate, she had oil rights in Mississippi, left to her by Tom Gregory, I think. Tom had died by the time I moved to town, so I never met him. But there was no paperwork at all. And so the oil rights, I think, had paid off really critical debts at times for Lena. Every 3 or 4 years, she'd get some company that wanted to drill. This was in Mississippi, I think. So that's kind of the story of my association with the cafe over the last, how many years is it? 48, I think? 48 years. So.
Thank you, Field. And now Connie Hume and Jack Hume. After that, Christine Webb.
The first time I came here, I was on assignment from the Schenectady Gazette with a reporter to take pictures of John Hurt. I got a couple good ones. And after it was all over, the reporter was a bit of a smooth talker. We were invited to Hattie's. I only had chicken that good once, and that was when I ran into her at the track. And she used to go there, that she had, I don't know, a little place that they, but God, that was good. So the next time, about a year or two later, I was in a performing relationship with Bill Spence, and he was the one that really got me started coming here and listening to the music. I had a pretty interesting, varied background. I started with rock and roll and blues, and then bluegrass, and then country, playing slide guitar and pedal steel. And so that's how I got here and got really interested. Then I just became a guy sitting in the audience.
What about when you met David Bromberg?
Well, I went to Bill's house, Bill and Andy's house. I was in the Air Guard at the time, and Bill called me as I got off duty. I think my recollection is that it was a Saturday night, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I told him, and he said, no, he said, "Take the shower quick and get over here. I got this guy who's a great songwriter, and he's got a really good guitar player with him." And I said, "Really? How good is the guitar player?"
dead silence. Well, I think he's better than you are. I said, I'll be over in 20 minutes. And so the talkers went in one room, and the picker and I went out in the yard, and he taught me a lesson, and it was great. And so we became pretty good friends, and he said, can you sing any songs? I said, oh, God, no, not very well. I'm not a good singer. He said, well, nothing? Not one song? He said, well, I think I could fish Darcy Fair up. Oh, I love that song. Go ahead, do it. So I reached in my pocket. I pulled out my trusty capo. All guitar players are supposed to have one, I think. Then I put it on, and he went, what are you doing? This was, acted on his part. And I said, well, I learned it in C, and I sing it in E. He said, that's ridiculous. We played for 5 minutes, and I know you know enough to do it without a capo. And he said, I stopped using a capo 6 months ago for everything that I could physically reach on the guitar. And he said, I've learned more about guitar playing than I ever thought I would do that. And I said, gee, thank you very much, David Bromberg. And he was with Cherry Jeff Walker just before Bojangles hit the air. So it was that was a life-changing experience for me, because although I carry a capo, it stays in the case. So then there's the communal side.
Oh, the community of Caffe Lena is deeply embedded in me. I met Jack in New York, and first weekend I came up here. First of all, he backed up Utah Phillips at Union College, and that was pretty stunning. And then the Sunday, we came up to Caffe Lena in the afternoon. The picking and singing gathering, we have not really talked much about that. But Bill and Andy and a few other folks were very instrumental in getting that started in the late 60s, right? And the PSG would have, for 8 years, had their monthly meetings right here at the cafe. And Sunday nights, often when the performers were in town who were interested, they'd come in and they would sit in with us. And it was led by Bill Spence. When I arrived that first year, there were probably 50 people in the audience. And I hated New York. I was so lonely down there. And I just could not believe how welcoming everyone was here. And when a guy who was playing there that night named Michael Cooney came in and taught everybody Streets of London, it was like pure heaven. I hadn't heard a group of people singing together like that. I would look down the aisle and I'd see who became a very good friend of mine, Chuck Munson, holding Shauna in his arms. She was only a year old. It was just all so unbelievably beautiful. So Caffe Lena, truly, there's a community it has fostered on so many levels. And for me, it was personal and much in need. So it's been a good ride.
Jack and Connie Hume, and they were very instrumental in helping us get this renovation done, just like pulling in favors and making a lot happen. So that they were the chairs of that campaign, and really appreciate that too. So now we're going to hear from Christine Lavin by video, and then Joe will finish out the night.
Our tour, Joe is going to need to come around, so we're going to turn the lights down for this, and then after Christine, push the lights back up.
This is the story of Lena Spencer, Rolling Thunder, and the Cape Cod Yellow Pages. This happened on October 31st, 1975, Halloween. Lena Spencer was a terrific actress, but this is not about that, though this is a true story. Whenever you see red writing on the screen, those are words for you, the audience, to sing. Got that? Anything red, you sing it. It's 1975. Lena did her best Miss Marple in her quest to track down the Rolling Thunder Revue. She knew the organizer would be traveling incognito, but she made a wild guess that his drummer might be using his real name. No one in the world knew where they were rehearsing. The year was 1975. Lena owned a small cafe in the college town of Saratoga Springs. The cafe was on the second floor, at the top of rickety stairs, and all the autumn leaves were a-falling. Bob Dylan was a hero, and so was Joan Baez. They had gathered all their music friends around them in a motel somewhere on Cape Cod, so Lena started dialing. All she knew is that she would not stop till she found them. Lena got a copy of the Yellow Pages of Cape Cod that listed every single place where you could stay. Lena dialed, as for Howie Wyeth, Dylan's favorite drummer. "There's no one here by that name," the operator would say. So Lena started with the A's, then she dialed all the B's, then the C's, then the D's, then the E's, then the F's. "Is Howie Wyeth there?" she'd ask. It was a monumental task. But all the places that she asked, alas, were Howie-less. Is Howie Wyeth there? No. 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 No, no. For hours Lena dialed her ancient rotary phone. She asked for Howie Wyeth, 'cause she knew he was not home. So she dialed and she dialed, till one operator said, "Howie is at rehearsal. Would you like to leave a message for him instead?"
"No," said Lena. "I'd like to make a reservation."
3 of us piled into a rusty orange hatchback. Destination was Cape Cod, where the Rolling Thunder tour was at. 3 times while I was driving, the orange car broke down in the middle of Halloween night, miles from this town. Doodling along when we glide to a stop. I was driving at the time when the car went. The owner of the car insisted that she tag along, because her car had issues and my driving wasn't strong. I did as she instructed, held a lit match near a wire. Lena clicked the ignition. I thought we'd all expire. 3 times we did this. 3 times we held our breath. 3 times we stared into the eyes of death. Death.
Help me! I'm holding
p.m. we pulled into the Seacrest Motel. We checked in, then we all went to sleep for a spell. And then for the next few nights, it was folk music bliss. In 3 different cities, we heard Baez and Dylan play all their hits. Bob Dylan was happy to see us, 'cause he once played Lena's Cafe. But no one there would listen, so Lena's husband took the stage that day. And he yelled at the audience, told them to keep it down. Dave Van Ronk arranged the gig here for this kid Dylan. He's new in town. So to thank the Caffe Lena for booking him when he was a kid, Dylan picked up the tab for the 3 of us. Yup, that's what he did. By the time Lena asked Bob to bring the tour to her tiny cafe, she realized there'd be no room for an audience. So she said, Bobby, another day. So in a rest stop on the Mass Pike, we all said happy trails. Dylan Baez, Ramblin', Jack McRonson, Scarlett Rivera, Howie Wyeth, Rob Stoner, Bobby Newirth, Roger McGuinn. The whole band set sail. When Joni Arlo and Gordon Lightfoot came on board, they sang along on This Land Is Your Land, the show's encore. This land is your land, this land is my land, until I sold you Manhattan Island. You moved our nation to the reservation. This land was stolen by you from me. Remember that, Mr. Trump? And Atlanta tracked down the Rolling Thunder in October 75. Now on May 21st, 2026, Caffe Lena thrives. So thank you everybody who's ever come to a show. Happy 66th anniversary, with many more to go. And thank you to the sound crew who make performers sound so sweet. Let's hear it for the sound crew. And the waiters and the waitresses who don't step on our feet. I did once, I'm sorry. I must say, I'm sure you speak for all of us when you mumble, that's okay. Okay, let's try that line one more time without moving your lips. Say, that's okay. 1, 2, 3. And thank you, Lena Norgie Spencer. Look at what you've started. How you made this small cafe so big-hearted. And to all the volunteers who show up every night and make the Caffe Lena such a wonder and delight. Everybody cheer! Let's hear it for the volunteers and for this is just one story, an adventure on the fly, with Lena Norgie Spencer on the road, and a tale of how E&YF. When she got her hands on Cape Cod Yellow Pages, she embarked on a quest that's now a story for the ages. One last time with really big harmonies at the very end. Is Howie Wyeth there? No. Is Howie Wyeth
You asked Christine Lavin to tell a little story for an anniversary show. Pulls out all the stops. So,
is this me? Am I on?
Joe and I have been giving each other a hard time for more than 30 years here, and
it's not over yet.
So I asked him to go last because, well, I don't want to get emotional on you, Joe, but you're a treasure, and you've been making me laugh all these years, and thank you.
Yeah, if you don't know who I know most of the people here, but if you don't know me, you think I'm the guy in the corner doing the world's longest timeout. Like I was really bad for something long ago. But few people realize Lena left a provision in her will that I was meant to stay here the rest of my life, just to antagonize Sarah as much as possible. I think I'm doing a great job. Great job. And yeah, I didn't really prepare anything to say because I wanted to absorb the whole evening. I don't know how to tell Michael Jerling this, but I was that recording engineer at WSPN when Lena fell asleep. I think you are the same. You inhabit the same space at the same time. Yeah, I used to do a radio show at Skidmore when I started volunteering here. And Lena would drag me up to engineer her radio show. She had a radio show up there called Lena's Open Door. And it was fraught with peril like that. It was like every night there was something. And yeah, I kind of remember you, like, I thought you were singing a song, but I remember her talking to you, start singing a song, we both look over, and Lena's like, and I'm like, I can't go in. It was in the little middle room between the two on-air booths, and it's like a no-win scenario, It was just a crazy time. And actually, after Lena died, I wound up finishing her radio shows. She had a whole season at Skidmore, so I did the last of Lena's Open Doors, and that was nice. I didn't play avant-garde jazz for those. So. But yeah, I've been around, oh God, way too long. When I was in 12th grade, I was kind of walking down Phila Street, and I ran into a couple of kids I knew from school. And they said, we're going up, have you ever been up to Lena's? We're going to go up and visit Lena. And I said, no, I was always intrigued by that weird little blank door down there. It was just, it was like one of those things, like you don't want to go into a restaurant when there are no cars in the parking lot, even though the sign says open. It's just one of those situations like that. But they knew Lena, and they dragged me up, and we didn't pay anything. We just stood in the back by the old wood fireplace, which was still there. And that night, Utah Phillips was performing, and he was recording a couple songs for the Good Though album, that Philo album, so I got to hear Moose Turd Pie and Cannonball Blues with Martin Grosswent, and that, I never really looked back. That was just a crazy experience, and I started coming here, and I think the folkiest thing I ever listened to up to that point in my life was probably Jethro Tull, and so it was like a learning experience, and I just kind of quickly got to know that I could just come to a show here, and the chances are good it would be something amazing, and I still feel that way every weekend here. It's just a crazy place. There's so many, next to the music here, the music is just stellar. I mean, there's people here who are just made of music. They're just like permeated with music, and the people here are like a close match. It's just there's so many wonderful people. They come and go here all the time. I've been doing this almost 40 years here, and I'm just astounded by the people I've known, and I've had a lot of good friends here. And then Lena was a character and a half, to say the least. And she was funny. She always knew that I like to take photos, so I still do. And she decided that the best she thought the best table in the house was table 10, which was kind of right over there by where Sarah's sitting. The state place was a lot different back then. And so I had no choice about where I sat because she would always put me at table 10. I'd come in and table 10. If I do a book of photos here ever, it's going to be called The View from Table 10 because there's a lot of similarity in my photos from that era. And it was kind of funny because she was so funny about it because once I came here, I called up crazy busy night and asked for 2 seats, and she's, sure, come, and you're at table 10. And then I was sitting there, and I saw this couple walk across the whole room staring at table 10. No, I think it was 4 of us because it was the whole table. And they were glaring at the table, and they stood up by the table glaring at me and glaring at us. And this waitress came over and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I know you wanted table 10, but Lena found out there was someone who had reserved it long in advance." I literally had just called, so it was kind of funny that she was driven. It just had to have me at table 10. So, and yeah, sure. Garnet Rogers was saying about her vision, it was crazy. She had retinitis pigmentosa, and she couldn't really see you unless she would pull you right in front of her to tunnel vision, just so she could see you. And yeah, she was always launching herself off the stage. It was the darndest thing. And every once in a while, I'd be in the kitchen and I'd hear this squawk and a thud, and come out, and Lena would literally be laying on the stage with her toes hooked over the edge. She would just kind of walk over. I was starting to think she was, totally indestructible till she actually fell down the stairs. And I remember watching in horror once, Lena was trying to feel her way on the chair backs up to the stage. And a friend of mine was a waitress, was leaning over one of the chairs trying to take an order, a very slender woman. Lena goes up, takes a step, grabs the waitress by one butt cheek. It just freezes her in her tracks. Lena takes another step and then grabs the other butt cheek. You could see heat waves coming up. It was just incredible, There were too many stories. Lena was, she was walking. Lena, if a lot of you knew Lena, you knew that she had, in the later years of her life, she had a angle in her head. Her head just was always leaning a little bit like that. And people were always saying, "Do you think she had a small stroke or something like that?" And one day she was walking down the aisle at the downtown Price Chopper, and she couldn't see it, but there was a whole broken spilled jar of salad dressing on the aisle. And she always liked to embellish the story, saying, "I'm sure it was Paul Newman's dressing," because it couldn't just be the Price Chopper. And her feet went out from underneath her, and she landed flat on her back. And for the rest of her life, her neck was totally straight. So things like this don't always happen to normal people, And about that Ironweed experience, I have to say, Lena always fancied herself an actress more than anything. She told me early on. I asked her what kind of music she really liked, and she said, "Well, I was more into jazz." And they opened this place because folk music was really popular and hot, and they thought they would make enough money in a couple of years to move to Europe. That was their game plan, and that didn't happen, obviously. And she found sort of a notoriety here, I think, like Sarah is too. Sarah didn't know anything about folk music, and she does now, and she's great at it. Lena didn't know, but she was great at it. But still, their lives are elevated from their positions here. It's just everything here is just kind of elevated. It's a thing that, it's like this place operates in some weird bubble that doesn't really make any sense. 66 years, didn't make a dime for 60 years, and I don't even know how that's possible. I know, I thank the Silverhearts because I know they didn't. I know they charged Lena a lot less than they could have or should have. And there are a lot of people who just managed to keep this place going, always when it was just, about to close or something. But I love that Lena was in Ironweed, and a lot of Caffe Lena people were in it too. But for someone who just loved acting so much, there's that short little scene where Lena's the slatternly woman. She didn't even need a wardrobe change, it was just Lena. It might have been like some of her older period clothes or something. And but here she is in a scene with Meryl Streep, one of the, arguably the greatest actress of her generation, and Lena's in this little short scene with her. I think that just gets me when I think about it. And her line in that movie was like, I think Meryl Streep offers her the toast, and she said, "Oh, would you like my toast?" And Lena goes, yeah, I swear you can't even, maybe it's, I don't know, but I'd have to watch that again, but that was... But that was Lena's big scene with Meryl Streep, so it just doesn't get any weirder or more wonderful than that, And I don't know. I know it's like I'm going on midnight, and I know I could be here for 2 hours, but I want to kind of. Are there any questions? No. Oh, man, I don't know. I just can't imagine what my life would have been like without this place, because it's really been, it's just hard to say. It's one of those things, it's just, I've moved to other cities before, and I always say, was there anything like Caffe Lena? And, there's some nice places and places to see music, for sure, but, there's just nothing ever like this. This is just a one-off. It's just a one of a kind thing, and we're all lucky just to be here. So.
Joe Duell. All right. Everybody, thank you for coming for this. Thanks for the crew for running the cameras. We are going to have this, I think it actually streamed on YouTube tonight, but it'll stay up there if there's any piece of it that you want to revisit or mention to a friend who might enjoy seeing it. It's going to be there on Lena's YouTube channel. And, obviously we could do this 10 more times and not use up the stories, and new stories keep happening all the time. So, thank you, everybody. Thank you for the storytellers for accepting the assignment. All right. Good night.